Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I am doing a live stream on YouTube. I'm not doing a live stream on Rumble today. The the date is February 14th. This is Friday. We're going to go over the news. Please help support my work by making sure you subscribe to all my channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube. I have Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. All the links are in the description of this video. I'll update the description section shortly here. But please help support my work and make sure you subscribe to all my channels. 4 channels on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Also, please go to my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Help support the work I do. I provide thousands of videos for free. It's through the donations and the ones that are paid members to Patreon that allow me to do this. So please donate on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee, or you can be a paid member to Patreon. All the links are in the description of all my videos. So please click those links and donate and be a paid member. Also on my website, I have many different products that you can purchase. I have ebooks talking about finance. Some of it is about genomics. Some of it is about artificial intelligence. I have 8 books over the years that I have written. Some of it's pre-dissertation work, some of it's the dissertation, some of it is coursework when I was at Harvard. So in biology for my master's in biology. So, take a look at some of that work, and if you would like, purchase an ebook. Another thing that you can get is the courses that I've created. For only $50, you can learn about immunology or pulmonology. You get PDF files, you get videos, a lecture video. When you purchase the module for $50, you'll get a unique password to log in, and you can log in as many times as you want, watch them at your leisure, download the PDFs, and learn about pulmonology and immunology. It's a great way to learn about how the human body works. The reason to take those courses is to reduce the power imbalance between the physician and the patient. The more educated you are about how your body works, the better you will be able to manage your care. Another thing that I have on my website is a plethora of different supplements that I take to slow down the aging process and to boost up the immune system. So I'm going to be going over that in this video. Also, with the news, there's lots of news that breaks throughout the day. So we're going to go over the news and some of the products and how to stack it to improve your health. Before we go to Bloomberg, because they're on break at the moment, I'll also have a simulcast on X Spaces. So please go to X Spaces, request the mic, and you can talk. We did it last night. We had 2 people talk about their perspectives on what's going on with Doge and Elon Musk. Great conversation. This is supposed to be an interactive show, so the more participation from the audience, the better. I'll set that up shortly, but please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great structural nano silver soaps that I have. I have it in charcoal tea tree. Get a couple bars for your household. I also have it in lemongrass, peppermint, and there's one other that I have that I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, lavender. So take a look at the different structural nano silver soaps I have. Get a couple bars for your household. They're very high quality, and it helps support your health and helps support my work. Also, take a look at the deodorants that I have. I've partnered up with Rainbow Herbals, and we've developed these deodorants for males and females that are dual purpose. You use them as a deodorant, but they also help to detoxify your body. You can get it in citrus, and you can get it in peppermint, lavender, and tea tree. But for males and females, they're made from essential oils from the Himalayas. All natural ingredients, no aluminum, no baking soda, very high quality. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. a couple bars for your household, help support my work, and help support your health. I believe in providing products that have dual purpose. You know, you're investing in your health and you want to get the maximum per dollar you spend to improve your health. And this is a great way to do it because it's dual purpose. You're using it as a deodorant, but it's also helping to detoxify your body. And lastly, find it. I have so many supplements. It's bewildering. Take the digestive enzyme complex. Digestive enzyme complex is really important to reduce the load on your pancreas. As we get older, our pancreas doesn't function as well. Our pancreas creates lots of different chemicals and enzymes. It produces insulin. So as we get older, it just doesn't function as well. Even if you're healthy, it's even worse if you're not healthy. But reduce the load on your pancreas. How do you do that? Use digestive enzyme complex. This has the enzymes you need to break up carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. So take this, reduce the load on your pancreas. It'll allow you to absorb your food. And then with that, you won't have digestive issues and you're not burning out your pancreas. Now, if you are an athlete, young or older, taking digestive enzyme complex is actually really good for you. Because what you're going to be doing is it's going to help you break up your pre or post workout fueling and absorb those nutrients, and then you recover quicker. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the digestive enzyme complex. It's very important for your health, especially if you're 40 plus years of age and you need to lower the stress on your pancreas. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the digestive enzyme complex. Also, the enzyme in here, bromelain, helps to break up clots. So it's fibrinolytic. So that's another added benefit to taking the digestive enzyme complex. With that said, let's go to Bloomberg.
The fact that they are losing almost $20 billion every year on Reality Labs makes you wonder if they bigger losses in that segment.
If that's the right strategy for Meta, given they've had so much success, with their apps, family of apps, and how good they have been in deploying AI across their apps, why would you want to spend too much time on hardware? But I think Mark Zuckerberg's view has always been he wants to control the ecosystem from the hardware and have that vertical integration, and that's why they're doing it.
Well, Meta stock, just to give you a sense, up 1% today, up 25% year to date, and up 55% on a trailing 12-month basis.
I don't believe
the market likes what's happening at Meta.
Yeah, they're killing it, but
I don't believe Meta is going to corner the. I don't believe Meta is going to corner the market with vertical integration when it comes to artificial intelligence, virtual reality. To me, Zuckerberg always seems to be me too. He wants to be a me too company. That he can do it too. He's definitely not the cutting edge of artificial intelligence. That's OpenAI. All right. In terms of virtual reality, most people don't even want it. In terms of this kind of like cyber world conferencing, whatever he called it, I forgot even what he called it. No one wanted to use it. So he's always behind the eight ball, and he's trying to he's trying to catch up and just say he can do that too. I personally think that Meta is not a very good company, and I wouldn't be surprised that in the future it really becomes a shell of itself, especially when people start moving away from social media. Because I don't think there's that many people that use Facebook that much. I very, very rarely go on to Facebook, and it's only because of some people that I've connected to, over the years. That's it. That's the only reason. But most of the eyeballs are going to X, not YouTube. I mean, not YouTube. Facebook. So X has taken most of the lion's share of the eyeballs. I just don't feel like Meta is. I wouldn't invest in Meta. This whole idea that Meta plans major investment into AI powered humanoid robots, doesn't that sound like a Me Too thing with Optimus and Tesla? Doesn't it sound like a Me Too thing with Boston Robotics? See, he's not innovating. He's not moving the ball forward. It's just he's playing catch up, and he'll invest all this money, waste shareholder value, and then the stock will tank. Watch. Now it may take a couple of years before the stupid investors that invest in Meta will see it, but that's my take on it. I have no confidence in Meta.
Note at their last earnings call that Apple Intelligence was a big driver of refreshes wherever it was available.
All right, well, Alibaba is up 3% today. It's hitting a 52-week high, still below its all-time high from back in 2020, but it's up 68% over the trailing 12 months. So it's certainly getting some love there. Mandeep Singh, thanks so much for joining us. Mandeep Singh, he's a senior technology analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence. Matt Miller, thanks for sitting in for Alex Dealer. We're going to have Alex back at some point early next week. Balance of Power with Joe Matthew is next after this global news update. Good morning.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Progressive Insurance.
I'm Stacey Lind. A high-level meeting right now in Germany. Vice President Vance and Secretary of State Rubio are with Ukrainian President Zelensky, discussing how to end the war. CBS's Anna Noraskevich is in Munich.
The path to peace is still uncertain. And it's important to say that Zelensky and Ukrainian lawmakers made it very clear that for them, they will only be peace when sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine is stabilized.
Well, first the wildfires, then heavy rain, now mudslides are causing big problems in Southern California. CBS's Rob Marciano is in Altadena.
A fast-moving waterfall of mud filled with debris, trapping drivers on the Pacific Coast Highway. Another landslide happened at the turnaround. Crews struggling to clear the highway of the runoff during the height of the storm. One LA fire department vehicle got sucked out into the ocean. Thankfully, the driver managed to escape with only minor injuries.
In Washington, hundreds of Fed workers are getting their pink slips, says correspondent Jared Hill.
CBS News has learned recent federal hires still on probationary status across several departments have received termination notices, same for about 1,000 workers at the Department of Veterans Affairs as of yesterday.
One of the latest departments to be hit is the National Nuclear Security Administration, which is part of the Department of Energy. That manages the nation's nuclear weapons stockpile, among other things. And CBS's Nicole Killian tells us a federal judge has temporarily blocked a freeze on funding to USAID.
The judge has granted this temporary hold, but it still raises questions about the future of USAID going forward. At least for now, it appears that some of these grants fundings can continue.
Pope Francis has severe bronchitis. CBS's Seth Doan reports he's been admitted to the hospital.
They need to do a CAT scan and some other tests that will be done at the hospital. We're told by a Vatican spokesperson to expect the Pope to be there for a couple of days.
The 88-year-old has been suffering from symptoms for several days now. Off to Philadelphia, where a giant victory parade is underway for the Super Bowl winning Eagles. As confetti flows through the air, fans have lined the streets.
Who do you want to see today?
Eagles!
I'm sorry.
U.S. retail sales fell more than expected in January. They dropped 0.9% after an increase in December. On Wall Street, the Dow's down 56 points right now. This is CBS News.
All right, for the ones that are watching the live stream on YouTube, I've also set up the simulcast on X Spaces. So please go to X Spaces if you want to do a call in. It's up to you, but this is supposed to be interactive. We'll continue with the show, but please ask questions. Give me your opinion about what we're talking about. If you have an opinion on Meta, maybe you do. I personally don't think that Meta is going to be a successful company. I mean, will it continue to be, quote, profitable? Will it continue to be in the ecosystem? Yes, but I don't think that they're going to be a major leading AI company, especially in robotics. I mean, Tesla is so farther ahead, and Boston Robotics are so farther ahead. It's just Zuckerberg playing games, trying to entice the investor community to purchase the stock. It's all BS. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Al Jazeera here talking about the Israeli captives.
Details, can you tell us about Saturday's upcoming release of captives?
Well, the Israeli Prime Minister's office acknowledged that it received a list, but didn't really say much else after quite an interesting week when Hamas said they weren't going to release captives and the Israeli authorities were threatening to restart the war. But since Hamas had announced it was going to be releasing the captives a couple of days ago, we still hadn't heard anything from the Israeli premier. But nonetheless, if this release goes as planned, 3 Israeli male captives will be released, and we can expect 369 Palestinian prisoners and Palestinians who were detained from Gaza during the war to be released as part of the exchange. This is still phase 1, where 33 captives would be released in exchange for nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners. But Hamas says that Israel is still violating the deal by not allowing this critical humanitarian aid to enter Gaza in the form of caravans, tents, and other sort of mobile homes that would be able to house Palestinians in the interim until their homes could be rebuilt, ultimately in later stages of the deal.
Handa, thank you very much indeed. Handa Sokut there in Amman. Well, families displaced by Israel's devastation of northern Gaza have returned to eke out a life wherever they can. With neighborhoods bombed to rubble, Palestinians are enduring in a place that was never meant for the living, a cemetery in Shujaa in the east of Gaza City. Ibrahim Khalili reports.
It's hard work, but Nader Milham readies the ground. 20 families inhabited 20 tents in this graveyard, and to make more space for the living, Nader must disturb the dead.
What can we do? Gaza is destroyed and all the shelters are overcrowded. We live here among insects and among the bones of the dead.
The necessities of basic existence now share space with rocks and shattered gravestones, sheets, blankets, and drying clothes, and many people who have nowhere else to go.
As you can see, this is a child whose father was martyred during the war. He lives with us together with his mother because they couldn't find a place for themselves. So the mother came here to live with us in Shujaa Cemetery. Our suffering is massive.
The formula for life here is simple and brutal. Have enough
All right,
children.
I'm going to pivot over to Fox Business. They're talking to Scott Bessent.
That's the most interesting question. I think it'll be a staggering amount. It will be the external, I call it the External Revenue Service. That was the name that was devised by a few of us. But I think it's going to be a staggering amount.
President Trump signing a new executive order yesterday for federal agencies to study the impact of worldwide reciprocal tariffs, with plans to impose those tariffs in April. He promises the tariffs will increase jobs, create new jobs, while raising, as you just heard, a staggering amount of money. Joining me now is U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Treasury Secretary Bessent, great to have you this morning. Congratulations to you, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Maria. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Secretary, I'm wondering if some of this is theater. The president said that he was going to impose the reciprocal tariffs a week ago. Now, yesterday, instead of actually putting them into action, he said you're going to study them. Is he saying that if Europe cuts its tariffs, then the United States will cut tariffs and will not impose a reciprocal tariff on Europe?
Well, Maria, as we've learned with President Trump, you should take him at his word. This is not theater. The April 1st deadline is for a study that the Commerce Department is doing on global tariffs that apply to U.S. products, country by country. And also, we're not just looking at tariffs, but we're looking at non-tariff barriers, the local content, things like that. And we're also looking at currency manipulation. As I've repeatedly said, the U.S. has a strong dollar policy, but because we have a strong dollar policy, it doesn't mean that other countries get to have a weak currency policy. So, we're going to come up with what is the equivalent of an index of an index, what I would call a reciprocal index, country by country, the outstanding tariffs, non-tariff, the trade barriers, and currency manipulation. And President Trump is serious about negotiating this. And look, I don't understand why there's any pushback on this. That if they want to bring all these barriers down, then we will have more frictionless global trade.
So are you expecting the president to institute reciprocal tariffs in April?
I'm expecting that we will get this report and we will see how our trading partners choose to respond. But I can tell you that if he needs to, he will implement them. And as he said in the interview yesterday, this can be a big revenue source for the U.S. government.
Yeah, and he's talked about the External Revenue Service, of course, sir. But look, you mentioned the criticism. The Wall Street Journal is out with an op-ed this morning. And here's the title: Reciprocal Tariffs Make No Sense. The author writes, Trump says the U.S. will, quote, impose the same tariffs on other countries as they impose on the U.S., no more, no less. That sounds fair. We treat them the way they treat us, but it's actually a terrible idea. It amounts to outsourcing U.S. tariff policy to other countries, that they would dictate what our tariffs would be. Your reaction?
Look, I think that is a simplified reductionist view. It's typical of the old thinking, and it's the reason the U.S. has been taken advantage of for years and years. It's the reason we have these gigantic trade deficits. It's the reason that many of our products aren't allowed to be sold abroad. All President Trump wants is for American businesses to have frictionless trade. And I will stand behind our American manufacturers to make the best products at the best price, and they can sell anywhere in the world without these barriers.
Let me move on to the amount of revenue you would expect, because the Committee for a Responsible Budget was out with some numbers in terms of what the tariffs on China would bring in, what the tariffs on the European Union would bring. Do you have an estimate in terms of what you're looking at, the kind of revenue you would expect from these tariffs?
Well, again, Maria, it's going to depend on our trading partners' responses, how quickly they do it, how much they do it over time. So, but I could tell you that these could be very, very substantial if they don't want to take their tariffs down, because we will match them percent per percent, dollar for dollar.
Let me get your take on sanctions, because Vice President J.D. Vance told the Wall Street Journal that the U.S. is considering new sanctions on Moscow and potential military action to push Vladimir Putin into a peace deal with Ukraine. He also said that the U.S. troops in Ukraine are not off the table. Zelensky told the Munich Security Conference he doesn't think the U.S. has a plan for peace in his country. He'll meet with Vance later today. So, Mr. Secretary, what are the plans in terms of sanctions, which is another one of your roles at the Treasury, sanctions on Moscow, and then I want to get your take on the sanctions on Iran, because I know that the Biden administration blew off those sanctions, enabling Iran to raise billions by selling oil.
Yeah, so Maria, I was in Kyiv on Wednesday, met with President Zelensky, and presented our vision and President Trump's vision for a solution for this horrible war. And President Trump has what I think is one of the most elegant plans I've ever seen for ending this war. Part of it starts with intertwining the Ukrainian economy more with the U.S. and making sure that U.S. taxpayers receive a return for the money they put in, and then helping the Ukrainian people accelerate out of this crisis after the war. And the second part of this plan, if necessary, the Russian leadership should know that if President Trump directs me, we will go to maximum sanctions on Russian energy as soon as possible.
Yeah, no, I'm going to get to that in a moment, because I love this idea of actually getting something for the money that we've been sending to Ukraine. And I know everyone appreciates the fact that you traveled all the way to Ukraine. So I'm going to get to that in a moment. Bottom line, are you expecting to put sanctions on Moscow?
Again, just like with the tariffs, it will depend on how President Putin comes to the table. If we believe that taking the sanctions regime up to a maximum threshold level will help us achieve negotiating leverage, and as you know, no one understands negotiating leverage better than President Trump. So that will be his decision, and Treasury will implement it.
What about, so, I mean, the president said he was signing an executive order to return maximum pressure to Iran. Are you saying that you're not there yet?
Well, I'm sorry.
Judicial Watch is a more independent, reliable reporter of details of the deep state, the way our government really operates in Washington, D.C.
Well, I'm sorry. I was talking about Russia. So with Iran, we are committed to bringing the Iranians to going back to the 100,000 barrels a day of oil exports. When President Trump left office, that was they were at 100,000 barrels a day. Now they're at 1.
You know the problem with Scott Bessent, he seems to be tripping on his words, and it's very similar to Larry Ellison from Oracle. Now, maybe he's tired, maybe he's just getting his bearings with the new position, but it just seems like he's tripping up on his words. Why? Why is that? Now, you know, a lot of times what happens is that people elevate, and they could be successful in business. They can elevate themselves into higher CEO, C-suite type positions, but they're really not that smart. They really can't think on their feet, but they've been lucky to get to that point. See, sometimes people elevate in corporate because they're smart. Sometimes they elevate because they're lucky. Sometimes both. But the thing is, he doesn't remind me as someone that's that bright. He's tripping on his words too much. Now, I don't analyze him enough to fully have an assessment, but he doesn't seem to be able to articulate himself very well.
Barrels a day, and that's how the Iranian regime is funding these terrorist activities around the world. The Chinese, perhaps the Indians, are buying the sanctioned Iranian oil, and that is unacceptable. So we think we can apply a maximum economic pressure to the Iranian regime. And I will tell you, I've seen the internal numbers, and their economy is quite fragile right now. They have massive inflation. They have a gigantic budget deficit, and that is with the 1.6 million barrels a day of oil being sold. So if we get them back to the Trump 1.0 levels, I believe that they will be in severe economic distress.
Yeah, and I guess that's the point. If they don't stop supporting these terrorist proxies. Let me go back to your meeting with Zelensky, sir. Mr. Secretary, you met with the head of Ukraine earlier this week. You traveled there to present an economic partnership agreement. This deal would trade access to Ukrainian natural resources, including those critical rare earth minerals, for continued U.S.
Let me
military
just do
support.
a quick market update. The S&P 500 is trading at 6,112 right now. NASDAQ is trading at 19,951.
This, what is most attractive to the United States that Ukraine has, and is this basically the way that the U.S. will continue to support Ukraine?
Exactly, Maria. That we want the American people to understand that currently we are aligned with Ukrainians on values, we are aligned with them on security, and we want to become more aligned with them on economics. And I think that it is win-win, as the American people have a stake in the recovery of the Ukrainian economy post this conflict, and we will get to the other side of this conflict. Then the U.S. will share in the benefits, and by having U.S. Partnership, capital, and ingenuity, I think the Ukrainian economy, that the U.S. involvement will act as an accelerant. You know, just next door to Ukraine is one of the great success stories of the past 30 years is Poland. Poland has had the second highest economic growth in the world since the 1990s after China. So why couldn't Ukraine do that? And why shouldn't the American people share in that through rare earths, through their energy, and through their state-owned enterprises? And we bring best practices in terms of privatization, in terms of modernization.
Did Zelensky agree with that, Secretary? Did you get a deal done?
President Zelensky is going to be discussing this today with Vice President Vance at the Munich Security Conference, and I'm confident we will get a deal done.
And one of the rare earth minerals is titanium, which we need, by the way, for data centers and to power up our own plans for artificial intelligence. Is that one of the attractive minerals that you referred to?
There's a whole array of strategic minerals that we have. And the other thing, what we're going to have to do, a lot of the processing, you can have the minerals, a lot of the processing still takes place in China. So we're also going to be working on secure processing, either here in the US or in Europe.
And Secretary, I want to get your take on cutting out waste, because of course, DOGE agency is going to agency after agency trying to cut out wasteful spending. Are there also opportunities to do this at the Treasury?
Maria, I will tell you that this caricature that's being painted, created of DOGE is by the people who they don't want accountability. And these are serious people, and they're going from agency to agency, doing an audit, looking for best practices. And what I've seen is that at the agencies above us is where most of the problems are. And sure, at Treasury, we could always do a better job too. But that this waste, fraud, and abuse that's gone on, there's a lot of complaining now. I didn't see anyone complaining when the budget deficit was blown out. This money went flying out the door, just before the election, right after the election. And there's going to have to be some accountability.
And I want to get your take on what that means, practically speaking, in terms of agencies being shut down. Elon Musk spoke about it this week. Here he is from Dubai. Watch this.
I think we do need to delete entire agencies as opposed to leave part of them behind. If you don't remove the roots of the weed, then it's easy for the weed to grow back.
Are you expecting entire agencies to go away with regard to financial services? I'm talking about, whether or not the IRS merges into another agency, the CFTC merges into the Securities and Exchange Commission. What are the plans?
Look, we're examining everything, but again, kind of this hysteria that things are going to be merged, that things are going to be liquidated, is we are doing a thorough accounting. Like I like to say, at Treasury, we move deliberately and we fix things, and we are going to fix this. And if there's overlap, and as far as the IRS, with the IRS, I have 3 goals. It's collections, privacy, and customer service. And I don't think there's anyone in the country who thinks that the IRS has achieved its potential in either of those 3.
And one of the things that President Trump said was wasting a lot of money is producing the penny. Does it really cost 2 cents to make 1 penny?
It actually costs a bit more than that. So, we're going to stop producing the penny. And there are examples of this all over government where the machine just runs on until someone says why. And it's, cost cutter like President Trump with this Doge. And remember, Doge is the Department of Government Efficiency.
Right.
So we want government to run better for the American taxpayer. And there are plenty of wonderful civil servants who come in every day and want to make things run better. And we want to partner with them and give them the means to do that.
Secretary, before you go, I just have one last question.
Before we go to Bloomberg now, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the drops and the lozenges that I offer to help mitigate the cold season or the allergy season. Get a few bags for your household or for your work. You're going to need them. And once you have that irritation, take the drops or the lozenges right away to mitigate the issue. I have elderberry zinc lozenges in a 21 count. I also have Manuka honey in a 21 count. Structural nanosilver lozenges. I also have them in a drop form, which are smaller than a lozenges. And that in the drop form, there's 100 of them in the bag. You can get blueberry, cherry, or honey and lemon. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get a few bags for your household, mix and match. They're very high quality. It has the structural nanosilver in it. Use it for the cold season, use it for the allergy season. The moment you have that irritation, take them right away and you'll mitigate the issue. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the lozenges and the drops. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. Discount 5, all caps, discount, and the number 5, and you get $5 off any order. Please go to my store and get the vitamin C. Vitamin C and magnesium boosts up your immune system, and vitamin C is really important for your skin. So if you're not feeling well during the cold season, take a double dose. Make sure you drink it with filtered water. Magnesium and zinc, you should be taking it every day to boost up your immune system. Not feeling well, take a double dose. Take 1 in the morning, take 1 in the evening if you're not feeling well. Make sure you drink it with filtered water. Use discount 5, get $5 off any order. Get the vitamin C and the magnesium and zinc. Powerful combo to boost up your immune system. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video and all my videos. All right, let's go to Bloomberg here.
A lot of twists and turns before this thing, gets to an end game. I don't know about the president's proposals. My sense is some of them are maybe higher priorities than others. They certainly add a lot to the $4.5 trillion cost of simply making permanent the expiring tax provisions from 2017. And digs our hole even deeper. We put out this report, and it wasn't just me. It was, at Arnold Ventures we have experts. I'm a tax expert. We have healthcare experts, higher education experts, and this was a collaborative effort to come up with what we thought was a balanced proposal. 10 spending cuts, 10 tax loophole closures that we think are politically viable. And therefore, we really want to put them on the table and have Congress take a close look at them. Our view is that Congress can do both and should do both. And what I mean by that is both make permanent and extend pro-growth tax policies that simplify tax filing for American families, make the tax code fairer, but also do it without increasing our already unsustainable debt burden.
Well, that would be a feat based on what we've been hearing. So just to be clear, before I start getting specific, you're looking at TCJA without all of the other additives, without tips, without overtime, without moving salt. Is that fair to say? We're looking at this in the 2017 structure.
That's how this project started. I mean, that was the basis.
Just to set the baseline. Right. So number one, let's start with spending cuts. You find up to $1 trillion by modifying risk adjustment payments to Medicare Advantage insurers. This is heady stuff, it's complicated. But as you write, insurers receive higher payments for enrollees with higher risk scores. You make the argument that creates strong financial incentives for insurers to make their patients appear sicker than they actually are. So what do you do with it?
Right, and so this is a policy that can save up to $1 trillion.
That's a lot of money.
You can, as we say in kind of DC parlance, you can dial it, or you can do less than the whole. It's not a everything or nothing kind of policy, but it's a good representation of the kinds of policies that we propose, in that we think not only can Congress save trillions of dollars, but they can save trillions of dollars before they have to go straight to things like cutting benefits or raising people's tax rates.
And this would not cut that.
That's right. This is about wringing inefficiencies and waste out of the system.
Yep, got it. Simplifying student loan repayment. You find over $200 billion there by simply streamlining 7 plans into 2. How easy would that be?
That's right. Well, I think from a technical perspective, it's pretty easy. In fact, legislation to that effect has already been introduced. So there's clearly congressional Republican support on the Hill for it. Politically, of course, as we know, 1 or 2 votes in the House on a partisan bill can stop anything. So, but there is clearly interest in doing this. We think the policy case is strong. A lot of this money is going to law students and medical students who earn a lot of money. A lot of it goes to professional students who just get degree after degree after degree that may not be worth a whole lot and then get their loans forgiven. So there's a lot of poorly targeted money there that could be targeted better at the students who are really using it appropriately.
You call for repealing the IRA expansion of the EV tax credit, electric vehicles. That is a savings of 100. You find another $100 billion there alone. Elon Musk going to let you do that?
We'll have to see. I don't think from what I've seen, he hasn't been shown much concern about reducing the EV subsidies. I think there's a view that of the IRA green energy package that the Democrats enacted in 2022, the EV subsidies have like the least bang for the buck. They cost the most relative to the climate impact they have. And so if there's any low-hanging fruit in the green energy space, I think it's the electric vehicle area.
All right, so we're flying along pretty smooth flight so far. We're about to hit massive turbulence. Ready? Apply the salt cap to businesses. Brace yourself. $823 billion. I thought we were going to raise the cap on salt for individuals. I'm assuming you don't want to see that happen and you want to add it to business. Is that right?
Well, right. So there's currently a $10,000 cap on the salt deduction. Yep. If you simply extend everything, it stays there. I think from a policy perspective, the ideal salt cap is $0.
Someone's screaming right now in New York.
Well, I like to say I would double that amount for married couples, okay. Double the $0.
Mike Lawler's calling. He wants to talk.
I suspect, yes. I suspect I'll have a note from his office when I get back later this afternoon. But the policy rationale is that if somebody's in the 37% federal tax bracket and their state raises their taxes by $100, if there's an unlimited salt deduction, it only costs them $67 or $63.
So they just keep hiking profits.
And the other $37 is basically paid for by the rest of the country. And so, that rationale applies to both individual taxes and to business taxes. Mm-hmm. Now, I would say the revenue from extending it to business taxes is pretty substantial. And there are a lot of good pro-growth business and corporate tax relief provisions on the table as well, provisions that I think we would say are good policy. And so maybe the corporate salt deduction revenues should be allocated mostly to those provisions, whether it's Trump wants to reduce the corporate rate further, depreciation, R&D, things like that.
My terminal is exploding right now on this. All right, if I had time to mention one more, this loophole, this is right down the middle for the Bloomberg audience. Reduce tax preference for stock buybacks over dividends. A lot of people watching and listening right now are going to bristle at this idea. Why would it work?
So it's a good example of another principle we have with a lot of these proposals, which is we're not trying to punish people. We're trying to find areas where there's non-neutrality, where there's economic distortions, and move closer to economic neutrality, because in the long run, that leads to more economic efficiency, more economic growth, a stronger economy. There is a tax distortion that from a tax perspective, using stock buybacks to return cash to shareholders is favored from a tax perspective compared to just paying out dividends.
That's why they just keep buying stocks.
That's why they keep buying, right. And we're not against stock buybacks, but there shouldn't be a tax subsidy for stock buybacks, right? Penn Wharton budget model did an estimate. There's currently a 1% tax on stock buybacks. Penn Wharton budget model did an estimate that said the economically neutral tax would be about 4.6%. That would eliminate the tax advantage and make them equal with dividends. So we proposed, not going over 4.6, if anything, undershooting to reduce that distortion. Let the market decide.
Have you sent this research to the Doge?
We have distributed it widely to the policymakers in both the executive and legislative.
What reaction did you get?
I haven't heard from Elon yet.
Okay.
But we've gotten a lot of interest. We've gotten a lot of interest from Capitol Hill.
I'm sure each office finds a different component that they like here.
That they like and that they don't like.
Yeah,
right.
So then they all go in the room, they bang their heads against the wall and try to come up with something. When you add politics to this document, how realistic is any of this?
That's a great question. So again, if you're assuming that this is a partisan exercise and every Democrat's going to vote no,
you know better.
We know that everything's difficult in the House because they have a 1 or 2 vote margin. Senate has a little more of a cushion. So everything is politically difficult. It's sort of a baseline.
For the ones that are watching the live stream, just if you would like to do a call-in, go to my X Spaces on my X channel, join in, request the mic, and you could ask a question about the news, what you think is going on with the economy. This is supposed to be an interactive show, so feel free to request the mic. Okay, what I want to do here is, all right, Bloomberg's on commercial break right now. I think I'm going to go to Al Jazeera here. Maybe not. Let's see if I can. Let's go to Steve Moore on Fox News.
So he said this was the big one. That's the reciprocal tariffs that are going to apply to a number of countries now. This is the market right now on Wall Street trading just slightly lower. I mean, really just 0.10%. Okay, come on over here. I'll show you the board about what Trump did yesterday and kind of how the economic world reacted. So the announcement comes right around 2 o'clock.
Let me get this straight. Bill Hemmer is going to tell you how the market is. What a clown. What a freaking clown.
Jump on the Dow. Maybe it stays there, maybe it doesn't. We'll see day by day. The reason this did is because they're not immediate. Maybe they happen in a month or 2 months or 3 months. There was one date thrown out that suggested April 2nd when the tariffs would be enacted here. This is what we talk about when we talk about reciprocal trade, all right? You got 2 countries, you got 2 business partners, essentially, right? And they're in this deal where they got mutual tariffs, one for the other. They tax each other's goods. But when one feels that the other is not in fair trade, all right, you start to get retaliation, all right? And that's where Trump is at the moment. And then we measure the impact. Will the costs go up? He argues maybe in the short run, but in the long run, he believes more jobs will come back to the country and prices will go lower. That's Trump's argument now on the impact. And now we get to the negotiation stage, which really could happen at any point. Something very interesting here on the world map. I know there's a lot of numbers behind me. Just think about 2 numbers for the sake of this argument, all right? The deeper the red, the higher the tariff you charge. The lower the color, the lower your number. United States is at 3%. I mean, globally, that's just about as low as you can go. I look at countries like maybe Ethiopia or Iran, where you're up around 20%. But look at India. India's at 17%. And just yesterday, you had the prime minister there visiting the Oval Office, no doubt talking about this. Steve Moore knows it well. And Steve, good morning to you. Trump's making it. Well, I'll go ahead and let him make the case about this. Roll it, number soundbite, Raj.
What do you think you'll raise for tariffs on an annual basis?
That's the most interesting question. I think it'll be a staggering amount. It will be the external, I call it the External Revenue Service. That was the name that was devised by a few of us, but I think it's going to be a staggering amount.
So he says short-term prices may go higher. Does that bother you, Steve?
I don't like inflation, and you don't, or nobody likes inflation. But first of all, let me commend you. I thought your analysis was excellent, Bill, about what is being proposed here.
Why is it cycling? Come on.
You've known me a long time. I'm a free trade guy. I'm a guy who believes low tariffs are a good thing for the United States. But what Trump, and so I don't like, for example, the steel tariffs. I think steel tariffs are a bad idea. But what Trump is talking about here is a brand new kind of paradigm on trade. And he's simply saying, look, as your map shows, Bill, we have the lowest tariffs in the world. So we're down here, and the rest of the world's way up here. And so he's saying to these other countries,
hey, Steve, and Bill over at Fox, listen really carefully. You're not that far away from where I'm broadcasting, all right? Just a skip, hop, and a jump away. Guess what? We need to make our own stuff in the United States. It makes us more secure militarily, especially when it comes to steel. What do you think those ships that we're going to need to make for the Navy are made from? Steel. Do you think we should be importing that steel to make our military ships or naval ships from Japan or from Germany? What about the aluminum that we need? Should we be importing that from Canada? No. The answer is no. So it's not about just the tariffs. It's about bringing back manufacturing jobs to the United States. So we're not beholden to another country, especially during a time of war.
Trade with the United States, because we're the alpha male economy. Either you lower your tariffs, or we're going to raise our tariffs to your level. Now, that is something that I think Trump is going to win this fight, because I think at the end of the day, Bill, and I'm not certain about this, but I think this is the way this is going to work out, is guess what? China and Japan and the UK and the Europeans with very high tariff rates are going to be forced to lower their tariffs on America. And that will be a good thing for everyone. And incidentally, at the end of the day, if this works out, we will have freer and fairer trade all over the world.
Okay, so we'll see how that goes. I mentioned April 2nd. I mean, that was a date that was put out there by Howard Lutnick, so we'll see if that's the case. And you're right. I mean, honestly, you can start negotiating this weekend with some countries if you wanted to. Wall Street Journal, tariff stress tests, markets rally as he delays reciprocal levies, but they'll be back. And speaking of coming back,
you know, the problem is
Jeffries.
Wall Street and a bunch of MBAs and Goldman Sachs and, you know, these consultant companies, they came into corporate America, especially in manufacturing. And they said, you can cut your costs by shipping manufacturing overseas or sell certain business units. And so what has happened is the economic prowess, the manufacturing prowess of the United States was sold off or shipped away or shipped away for shareholder value. But once you strip away manufacturing, it's hard to get it back. So it was all done on short-term gains, but not really adding long-term productivity for the country. They had this mindset that, well, we'll just have other places make the stuff and we'll be more of a service economy. Meanwhile, the federal government kept on spending more and more and more and more of your money. So other countries can buy the debt because they were given American dollars for all those goods that we were importing. And the government wanted to hide the true inflation through the overspending in Congress by importing deflation. They were importing deflation through the goods that were being made at a low cost in China. So that's what Steve Moore was promoting. Well, I think it's bad. I think no, the tariffs is a mechanism. So we sell our products to other countries and stop this arbitrage that a lot of Wall Street was making money on. And if they really want to sell our product, if they really want to sell their products in our country, and let's say they're making something, they should be making it in the United States. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, you make a better product, or you make a product that the United States is not making, and you want to sell it in the United States, you make it in the United States. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that concept? It helps with American jobs. And it also allows for us to have a better foothold on self-determination in times of war with our manufacturing base. Because remember, World War II was won because of Detroit. But when you don't have Detroit, how are you going to win World War III?
For Trump, he's coming for guys like you, okay? Here's his argument from the Democratic side.
Republicans repeatedly promised to lower the high cost of living in the United States of America.
First of all, the high costs that we still have is an afterglow from the Biden administration. Tariffs have not affected prices. First of all, there's front loading in the warehouses. Second of all, we don't have tariffs through Canada or Mexico yet. The reciprocal tariffs are just starting. The tariffs that just started with China just a few days ago. That's not in the prices. That's has nothing to do with it. Now, in a few weeks it will, but not right now. That's all Biden, all of it. Every single one of it. Not Trump. Tax cuts hasn't happened yet. So these policies that Trump is talking about has not reached the consumer yet. Now your eggs and milk, that's because of what's going on with avian flu, H5N1, and the culling of the flocks. So what the Democrats are saying is that they don't want to admit that this is still the afterglow from the Biden administration. And another thing that they seem to be supporting is that the status quo. They think that the consumer should continue just buying cheap goods from a foreign nation to keep prices down, while the Federal Reserve keeps on printing money and Congress keeps on spending money, so they can hide by importing deflation. That's what's happening here. People need to wake up. This idea of buying cheap goods at Walmart hurt the economy. Promoted it right now, it's being promoted by the Democratic Party. The status quo. They want the status quo. They want to make things worse. Keep on kicking the can down the road. Don't increase your manufacturing base. Don't worry about that. Keep on driving up costs. Keep on having the unions, have, higher cost contracts. Forcing Fortune 500 companies to ship jobs away because the cost of doing business is too expensive. And that's just labor that we're talking about. What about the regulations? And Trump's trying to deregulate. So the Democratic Party is trying to continue promoting the status quo, where we erode our manufacturing base. We do not have self-determination in time of war through our manufacturing, and just keep on importing deflation from a cheap country. The party of slavery. The Democratic Party is the party of slavery. Always has, always will be. They promote illegal immigration. And they say, we have to have them here so we can have services done cheaply. Well, that sounds like slave labor to me. Oh, we have to import deflation through the arbitrage of lower cost at a different country. Import deflation. Well, doesn't that sound like slavery? It's slave labor.
Have failed to do a single thing to lower housing costs, lower grocery costs, lower insurance costs. In fact, inflation is going up under this administration. A Republican complete control of government. It's not going down.
So it is mid-February, and we know what the Trump team's saying.
And remember what Powell did at the Federal Reserve, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, when Yellen, the Secretary of the Treasury, thought that inflation during the Biden administration was transitory, and they didn't do anything. And then all of a sudden it wasn't transitory, and the Federal Reserve started raising rates, but they didn't use shock therapy. They just incrementally went up. The moment when they misread the inflation and thought it was transitory and it really wasn't, they should have shocked the system by raising rates by a lot at once. Scare everybody. Businesses, the market, and consumers. And then slowly bring down the rate. But they didn't bother to do shock therapy. And then they started cutting too much of the interest rate in 2024. So this is a poor Fed policy where you had unemployment below natural unemployment rate, and you had inflation above the inflation target, and they continued to cut. That's a recipe for disaster. So what's happening with inflation isn't because of Trump yet. The inflation that we have right now is because of a bad Federal Reserve policy. They shouldn't have cut in 2024. They should have held, and they should have had shock therapy when they realized that they screwed up reading the inflation numbers. But they didn't. And now we have a problem. And we got stupid Democrats and a lot of stupid Americans thinking that this is Trump's fault. Now, in a few weeks, as tariffs start to take hold, and there's a drawdown of the front loading at the storage centers, then you're going to start seeing prices going up. But not right now. That number that came in, that's not Trump. That's Federal Reserve poor policy. We should have never cut in 2024. We should have had to hold the rate, because the two main indicators, unemployment and the inflation target, were signaling we had a hot economy. Stupid.
Saying this is Biden's inflation. What's the window, Steve? How much time does the administration have right now?
Well, what Hakeem Jeffrey said was truly laughable, because the 3 months, it is true that the inflation rate is creeping up. And I've been saying this for 6 months, Bill, that watch out for inflation, because where did the inflation come from? I want to remind people, the inflation came from the $7 trillion spending spree under Joe Biden. And they printed all this money and deluged the American economy with cheap money, and the prices went through the roof. Now, the last 3 months of the Biden presidency showed that inflation is going up again. Trump wasn't even president, Hakeem Jeffries, when the inflation went up. You're talking about what happened under Biden, not Trump. Now, I believe there's a reason they call economists like myself, Bill, a supply sider, like you have, you have Arthur Laffer and Larry Kudlow and others. And we want to increase the productive capacity of the United States so we produce more goods and services so prices will fall. Now, think about this. We're going to cut taxes. That's going to increase production. We're going to produce more oil and gas and coal and nuclear power. That's going to reduce energy prices. We're going to deregulate the economy. All those things are going to bring inflation down, not up. And we know that's going to work because it worked in Trump's first term when the average inflation rate was 1.9%, not 9% like we had under Biden.
All right, next time we get Hakeem Jeffries on with you, and we'll go toe to toe.
Let's do it. I'm ready to rumble.
You got it. Seymour, thank you for coming on today. Appreciate that. Have a good weekend. All right. Thanks.
All right. For the ones that are watching live stream on YouTube, please join the X Spaces if you want to do a call in. Let's go to balance of power for Bloomberg.
So we'll have more on the Munich Security Conference coming up. Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall will have an update for us at the top of our second hour. We'll welcome our global television audience to the conversation. I hope you'll be part of it, as we're joined by Michael Allen, Beacon Global Strategies, with more not only on Ukraine negotiations, but what might unfold tomorrow in Gaza. A high noon deadline for the release of hostages, or as Donald Trump says, all hell will break out. We'll find out what Michael thinks about that, including his prediction of a preemptive strike against Iran. He was the first to float that idea a couple of weeks ago here. Now it's actually being talked about openly. We'll have much more on that next, right here on Bloomberg.
All right, before we get to Bloomberg again, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the probiotics that I offer. I have a veggie cap version and a powdered version. I prefer to take the powdered version. I mix it with hummus. You can mix it with soft foods or just with filtered water. It's up to you. But because I take a lot of powders together, I just mix it all in my hummus and then take it all at once for my lunch. So it's just easier for me to do it. But some people prefer the veggie cap. Taking a good probiotic is really important to bring down inflammation in your gut. It improves your metabolism. It improves your ability to absorb your nutrients. It reduces leaky gut syndrome. You're improving your immune system. You're increasing the mucosal barrier in your gut. That's really important. And with a good gut biome, you're going to improve your skin, your hair, and your nails. That's a good sign that you're going in the right direction. Also, your stools will be better. And your communication between your gut and your liver is going to improve. Your liver is a major detox organ. If your liver's not performing well, you're not building up energy levels. You're not, producing the chemicals and the proteins that are being excreted properly. And just the detoxification is like super important for the liver. Obviously, your bile is created in your liver, and so it will help with better digestion. So liver health is really important. It's tied to your gut. In addition, your gut also communicates with your brain. And when you have a good gut biome, that means you sleep better. You're going to have more energy. You're going to be able to concentrate better. When you have better sleep, you're detoxifying your central nervous system. That's really important. And with a good gut biome, research is starting to show that it can reduce chances of dementia or Alzheimer's, because there seems to be a correlation to early onset of dementia and poor gut health. More research has to be done in that field, but there does seem to be a correlation between gut health and brain health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the probiotic in either the powdered form or in the veggie cap form. Take it every day. Drink it with filtered water, and you're going to see an improvement on your health. Your gut health is extremely important. Now, if you have chronic inflammation in your gut, then you're talking about a weakened immune system. You're talking about leaky gut syndrome. You're talking about mutations in the crypt for the lining of your gut that could lead to colon cancer. So you want to mitigate that. So you need to improve your gut. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the veggie cap version of the probiotic or the powder version. Take them and improve your gut. All right, let's see.
The Ukraine talks are underway. Welcome to the fastest show in politics as Vice President J.D. Vance meets with Volodymyr Zelensky today at the Munich Security Conference after threatening sanctions and even military action against Russia if no deal is struck. We'll get an update on Munich coming up from Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall with insights from Michael Allen at Beacon Global Strategies. He's also got his eyes on a critical deadline set for tomorrow at high noon in Gaza. We'll get into that with analysis from our signature panel. Rick Davis and Jeannie Shanzano are with us for the hour. I'm Joe Matthew in Washington. Thank you for being with us on the Friday edition of Balance of Power. We start, as always, with a look at Wall Street on the markets for us today. Amy Morris, how's it looking?
All right, thank you, Joe. Retail sales fell more than expected in January. Consumers cutting back on spending. New government figures show sales of just under $724 billion last month, which is down nearly 1% from December and a bigger decline than economists forecast. The weak reading prompted a slight increase in bets on Fed rate cuts, but for the most part, markets are pretty flat. The S&P 500 is up 1 point. NASDAQ is up 39 points. The Dow is down 103 points. The 10-year Treasury yield at 4.46%, and the 2-year yield at 4.25%. Meta is reportedly planning a major investment into AI-powered humanoid robots after pushing into augmented reality and artificial intelligence. Sources tell Bloomberg that Meta is forming a new team within its Reality Labs hardware division to begin work on futuristic robots that can act like humans and assist with physical tasks. Meta shares right now about 1% higher. And you may be paying more for chocolate on this Valentine's Day. There is a global cocoa shortage. The cost of chocolate is up a reported 20% for the year because of record high cocoa prices. Cocoa, as you know, a key ingredient in chocolate. It's harvested mostly in West Africa. That's where crops have been hit pretty hard by some climate change and disease that's caused prices to skyrocket. For on-demand news 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News Now wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Amy Morris. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Let's go back to Balance of Power with Joe Matthew.
Hey, Amy, thank you so much. Welcome to the threshold of the weekend. Yes, the Friday edition of Balance of Power. Well, it's the Valentine's Day edition, right? Happy Valentine's Day, and thanks for spending part of it with us here. They're feeling the romance at the White House up on Twitter with a special post that says, "Roses are red, violets are blue. Come here illegally and we'll deport you." Romance ever in the air here in the nation's capital. As Donald Trump prepares to walk into the Oval Office and sign a few executive actions that was scheduled for the top of this hour. We'll let you know if any news breaks. He'll soon be on his way to Mar-a-Lago for the weekend. J.D. Vance is the one speaking for the administration today. At the Munich Security Conference, the Secretary of State is also there after some trouble with his airplane. Marco Rubio got there a bit late, but is on the ground. J.D. Vance today meeting with President Zelensky of Ukraine to get the ball rolling on negotiations. He spoke earlier, as you've been hearing on Bloomberg, made some waves with a speech this morning at the Munich Security Conference, and Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall is here with more on this. Tyler, what he said?
Well, Joe, he started off his speech saying that there's, quote, a new sheriff in town, of course, referring to the Trump administration. He then issued a pretty sharp rebuke of European leaders, accusing them of trying to undermine democratic values. He honed in on this idea that regulations, particularly against some tech companies, could stifle free speech. But of course, this was at the Munich Security Conference. So he made sure to tie it into this idea of collective security, talking about how pivotal free speech is to holding up democratic mandates. Of course, freedom of speech, conservative ideals is something that we've heard often from Trump and Vance on the campaign trail. But what was particularly striking is that J.D. Vance took the stage right after the EU's Ursula von der Leyen gave her own speech and had her own harsh words for the United States. She at one point said that nations are trending towards a more, quote, transactional view, which appeared to be a swipe at the Trump administration. And then she had this to say about tariffs, which of course have been dominating our conversations in recent days.
A stronger Europe works with the United States to deter the threats we have in common as partners. And this is why we believe that trade wars and punitive tariffs make no sense.
Now, of course, those comments coming after yesterday, President Trump revealed his reciprocal tariff plan, even naming the EU in those Oval Office remarks. And this week, we really started to see the intersection, right, of foreign policy and economic policy during the Munich Security Conference. We've heard European leaders in particular talk about this idea of a shifting burden, particularly when it comes to NATO defense spending, Ukraine. I pulled one number from our friends at Bloomberg Economics that crunched the bills on a likely bill if Europe does assume Ukraine security. It would cost the continent northward of $3 trillion.
We talked to Peter Navarro on Balance of Power yesterday about this idea of reciprocal tariffs. He says the VAT is going to be treated like a tariff and that Europe has something coming here. They were not implemented, though. This is going to take some time. We wait till April to find out.
Right, Joe. This is going to kick off a sort of a study, and it's going to be a big undertaking for the Trump administration, right? They have to study some upwards of 200 trade relations. We know that Commerce and the USTR are going to start to go through these as they make these tariff and country by country calculations. And as you mentioned, it's not just going to be top line tariff rates and schedules. It's really going to look at what the White House is calling non-tariff burdens. Think regulations, subsidies, even lax IP protections could be woven in here. But actually what struck me particularly about your conversation with Peter Navarro yesterday is that he kept dodging questions on whether or not the administration's end goal here is equal tariffs or no tariffs at all. So that indicates to us there's some leeway here and definitely some negotiations.
Or a third option, which is to implement tariffs to raise revenue to pay for Trump tax cuts. That was the construct that we heard about on the campaign trail that we talked to Scott Bessent about. That doesn't seem to be at least a guarantee here, because to your point, we could end up in a world with no tariffs still, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, there is now this big leeway when it comes to negotiations. And while we have, mostly heard the administration, particularly Scott Bessent, talk about tariffs in these sort of three camps, right? As a revenue raiser, as a way to rebalance trade, and as a negotiating tool. So we're going to have to see how this shakes out, particularly as House Republicans start to get the ball rolling actually on that reconciliation bill that would look to accomplish President Trump's biggest spending cuts and tax cut plan.
Great reporting, Tyler. Thank you so much. Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall with us here on Balance of Power. And our eyes on Munich today. There are a couple of important stories that we're following. You've got negotiations, of course, that are getting underway in Munich with regard to Ukraine. You've also got an important deadline tomorrow in Gaza that we're going to be talking to Michael Allen about here. A high noon deadline put forth by Donald Trump said all hell will break out if hostages are not released. And Hamas had been dragging its feet on the idea of a continued release here. It appears it will be on schedule very unclear how many hostages and what condition they will be in. Michael Allen is Managing Director of Beacon Global Strategies and spent time as Special Assistant to President George W. Bush as part of his national security team. It's great to see you. Welcome back.
Good to see you, Jeff.
So we want to talk about a couple of things here, and we'll start in Munich. I know you're no stranger to the Munich Security Conference, and it is now apparently the staging ground for at least the opening salvo in talks over Ukraine. J.D. Vance talking about a lot of things today, including the idea of American troops being on the table in Ukraine. Do you buy that?
Well, I was shocked by the inclusion of that in J.D. Vance's remarks. Of course, he means, I believe, a tripwire force, part of some sort of peacekeeping operation. But just 2 days after Hegseth dismissed that there would be U.S. soldiers involved in such an arrangement, it was definitely a surprise to see Vice President Vance come in and say, well, not only U.S. troops, but sanctions as well are on the table.
So he's trying to talk tough against Russia. They're trying to compel, I guess, Vladimir Putin to the table, but Donald Trump was on the phone with him for an hour and a half the other day. What they talk about?
Well, they talked about Ukraine, certainly. It sounds like the president also talked about wanting to get rid of nuclear weapons, and they even talked about artificial intelligence. But I think Ukraine was the most thing they talked about. And I think he's trying to induce Putin to the table. Maybe they meet in the Middle East in the coming weeks. But I think it's Trump starting to set the conditions under which he can get into a real negotiation.
He says Vladimir Putin wants to get out. Russia wants to get out of this thing. Do you believe that? Is he looking for an off-ramp? How come he couldn't find one with Joe Biden?
I believe at most that Putin's looking for is a brief ceasefire in order to have his arms back.
So you doubt his motivations entirely.
Well, because I don't think the underlying problems with why there is a war are going to be addressed, and which is that Ukraine, he doesn't want them to exist. He sees them as a security threat. He doesn't like NATO approaching his borders. So Putin's been suffering. He needs more arms. He needs time for his economy to recover. It's starting to go down and down. And so I think at most he would want a ceasefire. A peace agreement, I doubt it.
The idea of going back to pre-2014 boundaries, Crimea included.
Yeah.
Secretary of Defense says unrealistic. He had to walk back some of those remarks. Is he right?
I think it's unrealistic to expect them to vacate Crimea or really almost any territory that they already have.
Goes to Russia.
I'm afraid that at least half the Donbass might go to Russia. Maybe they put it in some special status and try to say that there'll be a vote sometime in the future, just to sort of to preserve some sort of space-saving arrangement for Zelensky. But yeah, it's hard to imagine. Can you see Russian troops rolling back from any of the territory that they've already gotten? Maybe only if they're trading Kursk, and that's the Russian territory that the Ukrainians have set up camp.
Suggesting that was a pretty smart move for Zelensky.
So.
Just big picture then. This does not sound like a Michael Allen who expects this war to end, well, certainly not on day one, but in the initial stages of this new presidency.
I can't see it ending for a long period of time. I mean, this could come back again. I mean, we had 2014 and then we had 2022. And I think Vladimir Putin's got very serious designs on this particular piece of territory. I'm hopeful that we won't have a third war, if you will. If we have a real European peacekeeping force, a real tripwire there, we have to do actual security guarantees. If not NATO, then they need to have some assurances that the West will be there for them. Because what Zelensky needs is he needs to have his country back. He needs to feel safe enough, and companies need to feel safe enough to go there and invest and attract his refugees back. And if it feels like a cheap ceasefire, neither of those things will happen.
And if Putin's goal is to reconstitute the Soviet Union, we're just spending a lot of time talking for nothing here.
Yeah.
Spending time with Michael Allen on balance of power, I want to move to Israel and what might take place tomorrow. We've seen a lot of cross currents here between Hamas and Israel when it comes to hostages in Gaza, approaching a potential phase 2 under the ceasefire. Donald Trump this week decides to say if they're not all out by noontime Saturday, hell breaks out. That threat seemed to work pretty well last time. Will it tomorrow?
I think so. A few hours ago, Hamas, through an intermediary, said, here are the 3 hostages that we plan to release. So I think things are still on track. It's never great to feel super about it until it actually happens. There's definitely a lot of stress in the relationship. I think the president constantly talking about Gaza and maybe the Palestinians not being able to come back might be sort of destabilizing for this in the future. I think they need to try and get Israel's commitments to roll back their troops out of populated areas. That needs to continue to happen so that the conditions that for us to proceed down into phase 2 will obtain.
Boy, he said a lot the other day and indicated that he needed to see more than 3 hostages. Did you read his words to suggest the scheduled release must go forward, or that every hostage must be released?
The latter. I saw him say very clearly that I want them all back now.
So
I don't know that if he attached though all hell break loose to all of them coming back on Saturday. He definitely said I want them all back. I'm tired of this process, but it may be enough that they're back in train, and then maybe that'll satisfy Trump.
This is what happens when you try to parse the words here. I want to remind everybody that you were the first person on this broadcast, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, around the time Donald Trump met with Benjamin Netanyahu, to say that they were in fact talking about a lot more than Gaza. They were talking about a preemptive strike against Iran. Definitely. And that this is in fact something that is in the works. Reporting in the days following our interview suggested that this is in fact underway. Are we going to see an Israeli strike against Iran?
I think it's getting more and more likely because the conditions for Israel to be able to do this are in good shape. It's because there is no real air defense system, radars in Syria, even in Tehran. There is a sense that because there's no Hezbollah, they have a freer shot in order to go hit Iran, inside Iran proper. I think what people are digesting now is that will it be a complete destruction of their nuclear program or just degrading? And it's going to be just degrading. It's too spread out. It's been going on for too long. I think what they're really down to is, do they have the precise weaponry to be able to penetrate into the mountain complex that houses the main centrifuge hub called Fordow? That's, I think, what they're looking for. There are rumors that the Israelis are getting the right weaponry from us, but I don't know that I've seen it confirmed yet.
So they use American-made bunker-busting bombs.
Exactly.
Does America help execute the operation by intelligence or any other?
I think by intelligence, certainly. I don't know that, however, Trump will allow one of our cargo planes or a B-2 in order to do it. I mean, the Israelis, I think, could do it through their own cargo plane, but there are a lot of people trying to study this right now.
What's Saudi Arabia think of this?
I think they're not excited about it. When you think about Mohammed bin Salman, what he wants and what he's been talking about forever is Vision 2030. He wants to be able to develop his economy, diversify it away from oil. And I don't think, even though he doesn't like the Iranians, I don't think he really wants to see a war break out between the two. I think he, over time, wants to see some sort of progress with the Palestinians so that he can normalize with Israel, because ultimately that's what's good for his economy. That's like the Silicon Valley of the Middle East, and he knows he needs to have good relations there.
Fascinating. I'm guessing that King Abdullah of Jordan is not sleeping well at night. He met with Donald Trump here earlier in the week. Pretty awkward meeting. I mean, he's being asked to essentially do the impossible in housing thousands more Palestinians, which he's clearly not prepared to do, but he needs the United States to exist, doesn't he?
We have supported them lock, stock, and barrel for many generations, and I don't see us stopping this anytime soon. I hope that Trump was satisfied with the King of Jordan saying, I'll take 2,000 sick and injured children. Maybe he can do humanitarian things to assuage President Trump. But I think the pressure goes back onto Egypt now. They canceled their trip over here. I think you'll hear Trump will comment on that at some point in particular. And don't forget about the UAE and Saudi. It seems like the vice president's, Rubio's going to go over there soon. Mike Waltz may go over there soon. So there's a lot of activity in the works.
Well, the long game was normalized relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia. We talk about this a lot,
right?
That this ceasefire might help to unlock negotiations again. You start bombing Iran, we're walking away from that, right?
It could be, yeah, because sometimes Iran says, well, you know what, I'm going to hit your regional allies, America, if this happens here. I don't know that they would do it. We would be over there in some sort of presence to try and shoot down the missiles that were headed towards our allies. But it would be an iffy proposition, and I don't think they're ready for it.
Benjamin Netanyahu does not want to see a phase 2, is the conventional wisdom.
Yeah.
Will he find a way to reignite this fight in Gaza? He's promising intense fighting if hostages are not released tomorrow.
I think that he's under real pressure from President Trump. It's so early in the Trump term. I know Ron Dermer and people that are close to him are saying you just can't defy the president right now. When he's saying he wants all the hostages done and he wants that distraction over with. Yeah. That's the real new factor that Netanyahu has to deal with. It's no longer just Biden anymore pushing for things. It's Trump. He's going to be here for a long time, and Trump loves to use leverage. He doesn't want that relationship to go in the ditch.
How long is the window for Iran by the time they build up their defenses once again to make that impossible?
It's hard to say. It's probably a matter of 6 months or more. They need new stuff back from Russia, which obviously has a lot of other designs on their own equipment. But it's not going to be there forever. I mean, Hezbollah and Iran are already trying to rebuild, so they need to think about doing it sooner rather than later, and they need to figure out how many sites they can hit.
Someday we're going to have a lighthearted conversation. I just know it. Michael Allen, Beacon Global Strategies, thank you for bringing your experience and expertise to the table, as always, here on Balance of Power. I'm Joe Matthew in Washington. Glad you're with us. We'll assemble our panel next. Rick Davis and Gina Shanzano on the way in here on Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio.
I noticed on France 24 there was a new book that's coming out. I think it's new. It's called Mastering AI. So I just requested it from the library. So hopefully I read it. But they're talking to the author right now about it. But before I'm not sure if they're continuing on. I think they just switched the subject. Maybe, I'm not sure. But before we go to France 24 and just listen in, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Listen to how I stack these supplements. I have very high quality supplements. It's stuff that I take, all right? Now they're just to, tell the audience how this works. There's a core, and in the core there are 4 pillars. And the first pillar is to boost up your immune system by taking Max 35. The second pillar is to take C60 to soak up free radicals. The third pillar is to bring down chronic inflammation by taking turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans. And then the fourth pillar is to boost up your energy levels and speed up your metabolism by taking Boomer Boost. That's the core, and then you add supplements to that. All right. Now, what will happen is your immune system will improve, your energy levels will improve, your organ systems will improve. You'll slow down the aging process, and your longevity will improve. Your vitality will improve. All right. So let's talk about the third pillar, bringing down inflammation. Take turmeric. This brings down inflammation, brings down those pro-inflammatory cytokines, but it also is an antioxidant, so it's going to soak up free radicals. Couple this with ashwagandha root. It works really well to boost up your immune system and help to reduce inflammation in the cardiovascular system. And lignans also is an antioxidant, soaks up free radicals, but it brings down pro-inflammatory cytokines. It brings down that inflammation, and by bringing down chronic inflammation, you're boosting up your immune system. It's a powder. You mix it with soft foods or with filtered water. It's up to you, or a shake. I mix it with hummus, but you can mix it with yogurt or something else. It's up to you. But taking this every day will help to boost up your immune system. It works really well when you stack it with turmeric and ashwagandha. So that's the third pillar, to bring down that pro-inflammatory response. People that are chronically inflamed, what happens is your cortisol levels are too high. And then what happens is that cortisol level, that chronic cortisol level, is immunosuppressive. So you want to bring that down. Bring down that inflammation, bring down the signaling, and then your cortisol levels will go down, and then your immune system will go up. That's how it works. So take lignans, it's a powder, take it every day, and it'll also help with your endocrine system. And take turmeric and ashwagandha. That's a very powerful stack. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. use discount 5 and get the products that I offer. Very high quality. I have a series of boxes that are also immune, longevity immune box. Take a look at that. Each of the anti-aging boxes and the longevity boxes are designed to be at a discount when you compare it to purchasing the products individually. And then you can add on the discount 5 on top of that. So it behooves you to actually buy the longevity and anti-aging boxes. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video and all my videos. Get the very high quality supplements that I offer. It's stuff that I do. I have a very extensive anti-aging protocol that I've been doing for a long time. And over time, I've been tweaking it. But obviously it's working because I'm older than Alex Jones. Alex Jones looks a lot older than me. So take my advice. I know what I'm talking about with this stuff. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Stack it the way I'm stacking it. Take my advice, target certain systems, and you're going to improve your health. Another great supplement before we pivot over is Myotrol. Myotrol is really important to take if you're 40 plus years of age, or if you're an athlete, either younger or older. Myotrol will help you build muscle and maintain muscle mass. When we turn 40 plus years of age, we start to atrophy. And part of that atrophy is just the natural loss of muscle. Another part of it is as we get older, we're not as active. So you need to do some cardio, you need to do some resistance training. And by taking Myotrol, you're going to build up muscle. What happens is this helps with gene expression for building up muscle. It also improves your mitochondria. Your mitochondria is an energy source to maintain muscle, right? You need lots of ATP. So you need to do some resistance training, take the Myotrol, and you're going to start noticing more strength gains. You're going to increase your muscle mass. And by doing that, and you're targeting your, different areas of your body with your weight training, you're going to start noticing that your bone density is going to increase, but also just overall physique is going to get better. Your back posture will get better. Do you ever wonder why, a lot of older people have, back issues or they're leaning forward? Well, part of it's osteoporosis. Some people even have scoliosis, which is the curvature of the spine going 90 degrees. But the thing is that most of you get bone loss because you're not doing resistance training and proper supplementation, but you need good musculature to have good posture for your core. So doing back exercises is really important. A lot of people just focus on their front core, but you need to do your back core too. So when you do that, when you improve your back muscles, you're actually improving the curvature of your spine. So when you get into your geriatric years, you're going to have less problems with slouching. You're going to have less problems with that curvature, that forward curvature. All right. So resistance training is really important when you turn 40 and you continue on with that weight training. But you need proper supplementation, and Myotrol helps with the gene expression to build muscle. Now, if you are an athlete, younger or older, taking Myotrol is going to give you the strength gains that you're looking for your sport that you're in. This couples really well with Gladiator barley, because Gladiator barley is a barley that is a high density protein that will help you build muscle. So the Gladiator barley is going to help you build the muscle because you're getting the high density protein, and the Myotrol is helping with the gene expression to build muscle. So please take my advice on this. You need to do resistance training, but you need to add proper supplementation with it. You get huge benefits. And again, a lot of people that do resistance training are not focusing on their back. They need to focus on back muscles. When you focus on your back muscles, you're going to have less problems in your geriatric years. Trust me on this. I know what I'm talking about. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Myotrol. Very important to start taking if you're 40 plus years of age. And if you're an athlete, all right, because you will get strength gains as an athlete by taking Myotrol. All right, with that, let's pivot back to Bloomberg. Unfortunately, we missed the AI segment that was on France 24.
Really modern affectations of expansion of the government role. Department of Education is a classic example. Since Ronald Reagan, it's been orthodoxy in the Republican Party to say that we're going to get rid of the Department of Education. Linda McMahon is just in the process of getting confirmed. Maybe, she can just stay home and not have to worry about coming into the office. But, this is a state function, not a federal function. There's a lot of argument to be made that those closest to the education, and we have a quilt of different rules and regulations that govern education as well. It should be. The last thing we want is federal intervention in the teaching of our children. And so, nobody's making that argument, but that's been the argument for 50 years in the Republican Party. Commerce Department, Howard Lutnick, put him out of a job. We have duplicate trade roles, and you scratch your head and you wonder, well, what do we really need a Commerce Department for if we believe in market economies and the free trade system? So at the end of the day, I think, we have to understand there is only 2 elected officials in the executive branch. Never has been more than that. President and vice president. They tell their staff, and a cabinet secretary is a staff member, what to do every day. And that's all that Elon Musk is doing. He's just a little bit better at it than most have been in the past. And so I'm not condoning all his tactics, but at the end of the day, much like in his first term, Donald Trump said, hey, every Republican president says they want to make Jerusalem the location for our embassy, and he's the only one who's done it. So, and look, that's worked out just fine. So at the end of the day, I think we got to give him a little bit of space here. And Jeannie's right. There is a recourse. Go to the courts and let them decide. What is legal within our system.
How about that, Jeannie? Your thoughts on the way Rick just framed that, having just heard Elon Musk say that we're talking about laying the foundation for prosperity that may last many decades, maybe centuries. So is the temporary pain worth it?
Yes.
I don't think anybody said that the bureaucracy is in the Constitution, but when we reference the Constitution, it is the fact that we live in a democratic state. And that the president, not directly elected, but indirectly elected, and you do have members of the cabinet, they are responsible.
Study of Presidency and Congress. The Center for the Study of Presidency and Congress, Jeannie is from. Okay? We're a constitutional republic. We're not a democracy. We elect officials, and based on our constitutional freedoms and our Bill of Rights, right? They govern. It's not, in a purist democracy, it's majority rules. We don't have that. We're not a democracy state. We're a constitutional republic. Big difference, huge difference. But she's from the Center for the Study of Presidency in Congress. What the hell are they studying? God, she is such a...
Rather dollars in cuts so that they can extend tax cuts again for the wealthy. So this is the environment in which this is being had. And so this is the impropriety that people are feeling, and this is the frustration that they are feeling, and people are starting to voice concern about that. Yes, you can cut the federal bureaucracy, but don't forget, when they tried to do it, what did George Bush end up coming in to do in 2000? To take back education to the federal level, because it was that unpopular with the American public. And we are still the sovereign people in the United States, not people who are appointed by the president and beholden to no one, especially not the wealthiest person in the world. So there is so much wrong with how that was just laid out.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the budget resolution that was passed out of committee last night. This followed 12 hours of debate, the defeat of dozens of Democratic amendments. As I said, we had a lot of noise in Washington yesterday, a lot of talk about Donald Trump, no fewer than 4 encounters in the last 48 hours with the media, a lot of threatening of tariffs. Nothing was actually implemented. We did set the timeline on some to be. The real news yesterday, Rick, was this. A budget resolution approved by the House Budget Committee, as Jeannie mentioned, $4.5 trillion in tax cuts, at least $1.5 trillion in spending cuts. Is this something the Freedom Caucus can endorse that could actually be passed on the floor?
Well, I think, we heard from the chairman of the Freedom Caucus that he got a deal cut. His deal was that the Freedom Caucus would be for this bill as long as, they would be able to explore another $500 billion in cuts to get it to $2 trillion, by the time the tax cuts are approved. So they got bought in, and I see no opposition to this bill at this stage. So conceptually, they could win by 1 vote on the floor of the House of Representatives and have one big, beautiful bill. So that'll put actually a little pressure on the Senate now to finalize their budget resolution that does not include the tax cuts. What I'm hoping is that we get a step back, and it's been discussed on this program today, not just look at tax cuts, but tax reform, because there's a lot in the tax code that can save Americans a lot of money, that generates revenue without stifling our growth, and be a better tax code. Gone are the days of the debates about flat tax and things like that. But the idea that we are going to spend this amount of political capital in re-upping these tax cuts and not actually revise the tax code just seems to be a missed opportunity to me.
Jeannie, the Democrat on that panel, ranking Democrat Brendan Boyle, Pennsylvania, called the proposal cruel, heartless, and toxic, harmful to low-income families by slashing Medicaid. We've only got about 30 seconds. Is he right?
Well, it's not only Brendan Boyle, he's absolutely right. It's also Steve Bannon, who warned everybody last night that a lot of MAGA supporters in red states really, really like Medicaid and are on it. And these cuts are draconian. The president has said privately he agrees.
Wait a minute. The Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security, the end user is not getting cut. The bureaucracy is getting cut. Their budget may be cut, but that doesn't mean the end user's amount is going to be cut. The end user's amount that they get might actually increase, even though that there is a cut in the budget. Because you got to remember, the budget involves administration and end user. But if you cut a lot of wasteful spending by the administration of that agency, either Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid, then you reduce that inefficiency. You cut the number of workers. You use technology to make things more efficient. If you have the same budget, that means you're spending less on administration and the end user can get more money. Now, if you cut the budget, let's say the budget was 10 billion and you cut it to 8 billion and it was 2 billion, right, in administrative costs, right? So 8 billion went to the end user and 2 billion previously went to administration. Well, if you cut the budget to 8 billion and you cut the administration in half, then in that case, you're spending less on administration and you're spending less on end user. But let's say that the budget was cut to 9 billion, cut to 9 billion, right? So there's 9 billion instead of 10 billion for the budget. That savings that you had in the administration cuts All right. 100% are offsetted by the reduction in the budget, but the end user did not see any cuts. Now, there are some people within Medicare and Medicaid and on the Social Security payrolls that shouldn't be there. So they're trying to get rid of the fraudulent stuff. So getting rid of the fraudulent stuff, but the ones that really need the Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security, the ones that really deserve it and need it, they're going to get it. And most likely they're going to get more money, not less money. That's the big point here. Just because you cut a budget doesn't necessarily mean you're cutting the end user. Now, getting rid of fraudulent end users, I think everyone would agree that's a good thing. All right. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the NAC. I've added NAC to my stack. Why? To boost up my glutathione levels. Glutathione helps to soak up free radicals. It's another pathway to soak up free radicals. It's synergistic with C60. You should take NAC and C60 together. NAC also helps to detoxify your liver and your kidneys. Very important. And NAC helps to calm your central nervous system. It reduces anxiety. When you do that, that means you're going to sleep better. Your cortisol levels are going to be lower. And that means that your immune system will be better. Your blood glucose levels will be better. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the NAC. Boost up those glutathione levels, soak up those free radicals, reduce anxiety, and detoxify your liver and your kidney. Use discount 5 on all orders. All right, and you get $5 off. It's very important to detoxify your body. We talked about how to detoxify your liver and your kidney. But what about the rest of your body? Zeolite. Zeolite will bind to heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals that have built up in your body. Once it binds to those chemicals and toxins, it'll allow you to urinate them out in about 6 to 8 hours. Take 2 small drops underneath your tongue, drink filtered water, do that every day, year round. It's a great way to detoxify your body on a daily basis. Some people prefer to just do a detox protocol once or twice a year. To do that, take 5 small drops underneath your tongue, drink filtered water, do that every day until the bottle's done, and do that once or twice a year. It's better that you do maintenance than just detox heavily for once or twice a year. It's also very important to filter your water and stay away from processed foods. Processed foods have a lot of chemicals in it that affects your endocrine system and affects your immune system and cause damage to cells. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the zeolite and detoxify your body. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off.
Years, 9 of the 13 retail sectors posted declines. In response, Bloomberg Economics trimmed its estimate of first quarter economic growth. And we check markets for you all day long here at Bloomberg. The S&P 500 up 0.1% or 6 points. NASDAQ is up 0.3% or 59 points. And the Dow is now down 0.1% or 73 points. The 10-year Treasury yield at 4.47% and the 2-year yield at 4.24%. Meta is reportedly planning a major investment into AI-powered humanoid robots after pushing into augmented reality and artificial intelligence. Sources tell Bloomberg Meta is forming a new team within its Reality Labs hardware division to begin work on futuristic robots that can act like humans and assist with physical tasks. Meta shares are more than 1% higher. Informatica shares right now 27% lower after that software company gave a revenue forecast weaker than expected. It also said it encountered unexpected headwinds in the fourth quarter. Santander is increasing its bonus pool for investment bankers by about 5%, smaller than its peers, but in line with the rise in variable compensation at BNP Paribas. For on-demand news 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News Now wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Amy Morris. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Let's go back to Balance of Power with Joe Matthew.
All right, Amy, thank you so much. Amy Morris, watching Wall Street as we cover politics here on Balance of Power. I'm Joe Matthew in Washington. Glad you're with us here on the Friday edition. We have our eyes on Munich today, but also on the White House, where President Trump is set to sign more executive action. There has been some reporting that it will be directed at the Department of Education, but we have not seen the president yet. He's going to be soon making tracks from Mar-a-Lago, where he'll be spending the weekend here. J.D. Vance, the vice president, carrying the message of the administration today at the Munich Security Conference, where Ukraine is story and issue number one. In fact, it's not just J.D. Vance. He was meeting a short time ago. They could still be underway with Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, there as well. Following a speech by J.D. Vance that really raised a lot of eyebrows, directed toward Europe, but also in an interview with Politico, suggesting that troops are very much on the table, suggesting as well that sanctions against Russia may also be employed if no deal can be reached. The gears are starting to turn. We did hear from Volodymyr Zelensky in Munich earlier today. Here he is.
I will meet with Russians, with only one Russian guy, with Putin, only after we will have common plan with Trump, and we will sit with Putin and stop the war. Only in this case, I'm ready to meet, not in other compromises platforms.
That's where we start our conversation with a true expert. We wanted to reach out to Melinda Herring because she's been with us every step of the way since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And as we seek peace, we want to talk with the senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center. She's senior advisor RASM for Ukraine. Melinda, great to have you back here on Bloomberg TV and radio. How seriously are you taking the opening salvo in these negotiations? It was an interview with the Wall Street Journal, in fact, where J.D. Vance said everything is on the table. How is the Trump administration posturing itself ahead of talks?
Hey, Joe, thanks for having me back. So it's been a big week for the war in Ukraine. And we saw the actual opening salvo was Donald Trump's tweet this week. And he said a lot of things, but it opened the question of territory, it opened the question of NATO, it opened the question of long-term security guarantees, and also the question of American boots on the ground. And we've seen the administration pull back, and where they are today and the way that it looks could obviously change tomorrow. But the administration is currently saying that the 1991 borders, so a much longer NATO membership is possible. They ruled out American boots on the ground, so that was one no-go. But in the original statement, it doesn't mean that American troops couldn't be in Poland or in nearby NATO territory. But really, the issue is about long-term security guarantees. And J.D. Vance said today that we're going to put a plan together that gives Ukraine real security guarantees, and we're all waiting for what those details are, Joe.
This follows what we heard from the defense secretary yesterday, Melinda, and I'm sure you were listening when Pete Hegseth ruled out U.S. troops for Ukraine, suggested that a return to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders was an unrealistic objective, and suggested that the country would never be able to join NATO. Which do you believe?
So I believe today's version. So you have to remember that the defense secretary has waffled. His positions have been all over the place. He is not the decider, as George W. Bush would like to say. So I'm going to go with today's version. And if I have to go with yesterday's version, Joe, I want to parse it a little bit. The headlines were not as bad as they were made out to be. So even if Pete Hegseth's version wins, the U.S. is not recognizing the 20% of Ukraine that Russia currently occupies as Russian. So that's one. Washington is not saying NATO membership is never going to happen. They're saying it won't happen now. And there's a possibility of putting U.S. troops in NATO territory to back up European troops. So even if the worst case scenario, what Hegseth said is true, that if that turns out to be policy, it's not terrible. It's not great, but it's not terrible, and we can work with it.
Okay. Well, that's good perspective. When it comes to pre-2014 borders, though, Melinda, how realistic is it in any conversation to have Crimea return to Ukraine?
So, Joe, Crimea is the tricky question. You'll remember that the Russians illegally annexed Crimea. This is the boot of Ukraine, the peninsula, in 2014 in a sham referendum. And the status of Crimea is still disputed. The Russians occupy it and have a military operation there, but Ukraine says it's ours. And the best historical example that the international community looks to are the Baltic states. So even when the Soviets occupied the Baltic states, they refused to recognize them as Soviet. And the international community has done the same thing for Crimea. So in these negotiations, I don't expect to see Crimea formally change hands. I don't think that Ukraine is going to be able to get it back legally right now, but the international community and Ukraine will continue to recognize that it was illegally taken, and they have the hope and aspiration that Crimea will be returned to Ukraine someday.
You know, we talked a little earlier with Michael Allen this hour.
So basically, the international community isn't willing, even if there is a peace agreement, the international community is always going to start pushing back on Russia, which leads to further conflict in years to come. All right, when there's a peace agreement to end a war, not a ceasefire, but a peace agreement to end a war, that means that the borders after that agreement are solidified. All right, you can't just keep on resurrecting, because there was the whole idea that this was negotiated at the table, but the international community will go, well, we don't really agree with that negotiation. So there's going to be further expansion and push from NATO, from the Western powers, to chip away at Russia. This is another example where you have the perma-bears, Cold War mentality perma-bears, that constantly try to demonize Russia. Now, I'm not saying Russia is lily white. They're not. But the thing is that there was a war, some land's taken, some land's going to be given back based on a peace agreement, and whatever happens in that peace agreement should be accepted by the international community, because the two parties made an agreement. Why is it that the international community should decide on what parts of the agreement that they're going to hold by? This is just a means to kick the can down the road for further conflict. That's what's happening. This is the international community is just going to say, well, we just don't agree with that agreement. Well, what was the point of the peace agreement then? So further conflict is going to rise. Maybe certain countries will sanction or whatever, and it just boils up. Maybe it will be under Putin when there's another war. Maybe it'll be a new president that takes over years later, and then a new war starts again because of this expansionism from the Western alliance through NATO. This sounds dangerous. This sounds dangerous, what she was saying. The international community, whatever the peace agreement is, the international community needs to get on board with it. All right. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the resveratrol. Resveratrol is something that I have been taking for decades. It's very important. It stacks really well with C60, NAD+, NAC, and ubiquinol. Resveratrol is an antioxidant. It's going to soak up free radicals. It's going to help with the health of your mitochondria. It's going to help boost up energy levels. Also helps to get rid of cells that need to be purged. Some cells stop dividing and they just sit there and collect garbage. Well, resveratrol helps you to get rid of them. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the resveratrol, stack it with C60, NAD+, ubiquinol, NAC. It's a great way to get the benefits of resveratrol. But the key to resveratrol is to stack it. Now, I've been talking about ubiquinol. Ubiquinol is the most bioavailable CoQ10 that you can get. Most people that take CoQ10, they're not getting ubiquinol. They're getting the lower form, and CoQ10 in the lower form isn't as bioavailable. Ubiquinol is the highest bioavailable CoQ10 that you can get. So please go to my store and get the ubiquinol. It's an antioxidant. It boosts up your energy levels. It helps with the mitochondria, soaks up free radicals, and it helps to protect your neurons. Guess what? When you're 40 plus years of age, You need to start protecting your neurons. Take ubiquinol every day. NAD plus boosts up energy levels, helps to heal damage, helps to repair the damage of your DNA, and NAD plus helps to protect your neurons. It stacks really well with ubiquinol. Have you noticed a theme here? Protect your neurons. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the NAD plus. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order.
Actually do to make good on all the promises and secure Europe.
What promises are we talking beyond paying dues to NATO and beyond investing in each country's own military? Is that what we're talking about, or is there more than that?
No, there's more than that. So if you go to the Kiel Institute's website, it's a great think tank in Germany. It looks at the commitments that country donor governments have made, and then the actual amount of military kit that they've delivered. And in many of these cases, there's a huge gap between the promise and the delivery. So I'm saying Germany and France in particular need to make good on the promises that they've made. Wow. and deliver.
We've rarely heard your commentary hit Europe so hard, Melinda. What's the big picture here? If talks are starting now, Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin are apparently going to get together. At one point floated to get together in Saudi Arabia. Apparently that's not going to happen. What's the window for negotiations? When does this war end?
So this war ends when Vladimir Putin decides that it ends. That's the hard truth. If Donald Trump pulls out and sends no more military assistance, Ukraine will keep fighting. And the Ukrainians have 6 to 8 months more where they can continue at about the same pace. So even if the United States says no more, it's over, that doesn't mean it's over. And you heard Volodymyr Zelensky saying, any negotiations have to involve Ukraine. So don't try this Yalta-like format where you exclude Ukraine. We're not going to agree to it. So I think we are getting closer and closer. We see Trump wants peace. He wants, the rumor is, Joe, that he wants the Nobel Prize. And he thinks that bringing peace to Ukraine might give him that. And let's hope, if he can do it, absolutely. But it's really a question of when Putin has decided that the costs exceed the benefits, and they don't at this point for Moscow.
Does a peace plan need to be permanent to win the Nobel Prize?
You'd have to ask the committee that one. I would urge them, though, to only issue a peace plan that involves a just and lasting peace. And that's going to mean some kind of security arrangement with permanent presence of troops in Ukraine. And it means Article 5 guarantees. And unfortunately, NATO membership is not on the cards right now, as Pete Hegseth mentioned yesterday.
Melinda, I'm really glad you could join us today. Melinda Herring, Senior Fellow for the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center, Senior Advisor, RASM for Ukraine, and just back from Kyiv, as Melinda mentioned. Thank you for the insights, as always, Melinda. Fascinating conversation as we try to track the ball here on negotiations surrounding.
All right. Maybe we'll shift to France 24 here. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. You can get it in avocado oil, extra virgin olive oil, or even MCT coconut oil. C60 has to be in a lipid, in an oil, for you to absorb it properly. Take it on an empty stomach for best absorption. If you work out, take it before your workout, and it'll soak up the free radicals that you generate during your workout, and you'll notice that you recover quicker. C60 will soak up free radicals. It's very potent because of the molecules. There's 60 carbons, and the way the electrons move around in the molecule, it allows to absorb and neutralize the free radicals. It'll help with your mitochondria, so you're going to have more ATP. You're going to reduce stress in your cell, reduce stress in your tissues. That means your organs will perform better. Your glands will perform better. Your immune system will be better. Your endocrine system will be better. In addition, you have lots of mitochondria in your neurons. So by taking C60, you're reducing the stress of free radicals in the neuron, but you're also helping to boost the ATP levels because you're improving the health of the mitochondria in your neurons. So that means your neurons are producing the neurotransmitters and firing those neurotransmitters. That means you have positive neuroplasticity. When we get older, we have negative neuroplasticity. So you start to slow down when you get older. But if you improve the health of the neuron and the mitochondria that are in the neuron, your neurons will perform better and you're going to have better memory. You're going to reduce the chances of dementia and all these other neurodegenerative disorders that happen in your geriatrics, in your geriatric years. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, take a teaspoon a day. Take it every day to soak up those free radicals, and you're going to see positive benefits. Now, again, if you follow the core protocol and you do this on a daily basis, you're going to get additional benefits. What's the core protocol? Take Max 35 every day, take C60 every day, take the turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans every day, and then take Boomer Boost every day. And what happens is your immune system is going to improve. You're bringing down free radicals. You're bringing down inflammation. Your metabolism and your energy levels really boost up. And then through that daily routine, your body is getting healthier. Then you couple it with other stuff like proper diet, proper exercise. You have to do balancing exercises. You have to do stretching exercises. You need to change. You need to do mindfulness, some sort of spirituality or some sort of meditative practice, and learn new things. When you do this in a holistic approach, it's a lifestyle change. But what happens is that you actually are healing your body over time. So if someone says just meditate, well, there are a lot of Buddhists that are fat and have diabetes, all right? You know, or just weightlift. Well, no. Or just take vitamin C, or just take D3. No. Or just learn. No. Or just stretch, or just do yoga. No. Just go run. No. It's a holistic approach. If you follow the holistic approach, you're going to get healthy. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, and you'll get $5 off. Follow this idea that I have. You're going to get healthy. Trust me, it works. Now we'll go back to Bloomberg again because France 24 looks like they're on break here.
For the Treasury trade, you got a rally in U.S. Treasuries today, driving that 10-year yield below 4.5% with the benchmark set for its 5th straight week of gains. That's the longest since July of 2021. There's a reason why.
Yeah, but is it a good reason?
Well, yeah.
That's the question.
Thanks for bringing us down, right away.
Michael McKee's going to tell us whether or not we should be concerned about these U.S. retail sales slump. Should we be concerned about the backbone of the U.S. economy?
Yeah, we're going to ask Mike in just a moment. Hey, plus how Torsten Slok solved a Sherlock Holmes economic mystery. He joins us in just a moment.
Also, the undocumented workers that helped build Elon Musk's factories in Texas. It is today's a big take and one of the most read stories on the Bloomberg terminal.
Yep, we're going to get a view too from the C-suite, the CFO of Waste Management on medical waste, on population growth, on tariffs, also on inflation.
And the star agent and Elon backer who's built a $1 billion fortune.
It's a great read. All right, we're going to get to all of it over the next 60 minutes. First up, though, let's get a check on the trade. Your top business stories. Here's Amy Morris in for Charlie Pellet.
All right, thank you, Carol. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing is considering taking a controlling stake in Intel's factories at the request of Trump administration officials. Now, the result would have TSMC fully operating Intel's semiconductor factories in the U.S., addressing any concerns about Intel's financial state. But the arrangement may also involve major American chip designers taking equity stakes, along with support from the U.S. government. They want to make sure that this isn't solely owned by a foreign company. Shares of Intel are down 1.5%. TSMC shares down nearly 3%. We check the markets for you all day long here at Bloomberg. S&P 500 is up 0.1%. That's about 6 points. NASDAQ up 0.3% or 58 points. And the Dow is down 0.2% or 78 points. The 10-year Treasury yield at 4.47% and the 2-year yield at 4.25%. Meta reportedly planning a major investment into AI-powered humanoid robots after pushing into augmented reality and artificial intelligence.
They couldn't even do virtual reality Zoom, and they're going to get into AI robots. Yeah, right. That's going to be That's going to be coming from Tesla and Boston Robotics. All right, let's go to France 24. I want to hear what's going on here.
The good call that immediately work on peace and Ukraine's prospects for NATO, as well as getting its borders back pre-2014, were, quote, unlikely. So, JD Vance spoke today. Let's take a listen. We had a little snippet. Let's have a listen to what he said a short while ago with Volodymyr Zelensky.
The threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within. The retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America. In Washington, there is a new sheriff in town, and under Donald Trump's leadership, we may disagree with your views, but we will fight to defend your right to offer it in the public square, agree or disagree.
So that was the message to Europe at the Munich Security Conference. They then went on to talking about the need for Europeans to engage more and also do more. Let's take a listen to the second part.
How many times must we suffer these appalling setbacks before we change course and take our shared civilization in a new direction? No voter on this continent went to the ballot box to open the floodgates to millions of unvetted immigrants.
So this happened after the attack in Munich yesterday, the car ramming incident. This Afghan suspect arrested, more than 30 people injured. So the whole point of the Munich conference, which was enacted after the Second World War, the mantra of it's called the Munich Rule, which is engage, interact with each other, don't ignore one another. That might be part of the reason why a number of European leaders, including the German Foreign Minister and Defence Minister, said it was met with barely any applause. They were shocked about having been preached at and not talked to about finding a best way forward. Aside from that today, away from the politics, France 24 has been looking at the implications of Trump's conversation with Vladimir Putin this week, speaking to soldiers in Ukraine on the front line.
Far from politics, these Ukrainian soldiers are training near the front line. 3 years into the war, they're worried about a halt to US military support.
The consequences will be catastrophic. We will continue to lose. We are paying a heavy price today, and it will eventually be even higher.
The announcement of a possible peace negotiation with Russia has been a rude awakening for the soldiers, as if all their sacrifices had been for nothing.
I think it will be chaos. I think it will be chaos. I think the soldiers who are now fighting for our land won't listen to Zelensky and will continue to push because this is our land. How can we just give it to someone just because they take it? I don't think it will work.
I don't want it, but I don't know. They're political. We are just a little people. What we can do? We're just fighting. That's it.
For now, they intend to continue to fight, even if in the end, the outcome of the war will be decided not on the ground, but several thousand kilometers away.
Staying on the ground in Ukraine, Ukraine's president has said there's a significant attack on the protective shield of the disused Chernobyl nuclear plant. It was the scene of the biggest nuclear disaster back in the early 80s, where he told reporters that a drone attack from Russia had caused significant damage to the one thing protecting the disused main reactor. We're also hearing from the Kremlin today claiming Volodymyr Zelensky orchestrated the attack himself as a lobbying effort, they said, while he's with foreign leaders in Munich. Here's Emerald Maxwell.
The attack took place in the middle of the night Thursday, damaging an outer protective shell built to contain radiation at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant and starting a fire. In the hours following the explosion, the Ukrainian president sought to reassure.
A Russian attack drone with a high explosive warhead struck the shelter protecting the world from radiation at the destroyed fourth power unit of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The fire has been extinguished. As of now, radiation levels have not increased and are being constantly monitored.
The damage is located in a highly sensitive area. The massive metal dome covering the reactor that exploded in April 1986. The outer shell that was hit was erected over the remains of the reactor in 2016 to stop future leaks. There's also an inner protective structure that was not damaged. Volodymyr Zelensky has expressed his outrage at Russia.
The only country in the world that attacks such sites, occupies nuclear power plants, and wages war without any regard for the consequences is today's Russia. This is a terrorist threat to the entire world.
The Kremlin has denied the attack. Radiation levels on site and in the surrounding area remain normal. The Ukrainian authorities and the International Atomic Energy Agency are continuing to monitor them.
Let's go to the Middle East, where Hamas has named 3 more hostages to be released in the next 24 hours. The fragile truce in Gaza continues into a 4th week. These are 46-year-old Israeli-Argentinian Iya Horn, 36-year-old Israeli-American Sagoy Dekelshian, and an Israeli-Russian captive too, Alexander Trufanov, will be freed tomorrow as part of the prisoner hostage swap that appeared to be very much in crisis and close to collapse earlier this week. All 3 men were abducted from the same kibbutz during the Hamas attacks on October the 7th. But earlier in Tel Aviv, I was speaking to Noga Tolopolsky, our correspondent there, who was setting out exactly what we know of these 3 hostages.
Right, these are 3 men, and as Hamas, part of the agreement is that women would be released first and then the men. The understanding among Israelis is that these are the last male hostages who are going to be released alive. So as we saw last week, Israelis were quite horrified by the condition of the men released. I'd have to say that the whole country is girding itself for some pretty difficult, harsh images tomorrow. And then for matters to get worse, because part of this first phase of the ceasefire involves also releasing the dead bodies of 8 further hostages. So that stands in the balance. And finally, Islamic Jihad, a kind of frenemy organization to Hamas in the Gaza Strip, also today said that it would release a male hostage tomorrow. And it appears that within the Israeli establishment, no one knows if this indicates that a 4th hostage will be released, or if one of the 3 men named by Hamas is actually being held by the Islamic Jihad. And so in that case, we would expect 2 of the sort of ceremonies we've seen when they parade hostages in front of crowds in Gaza.
Noga Tolopolsky in Tel Aviv. Well, it's been 20 years north of Tel Aviv in Lebanon since the assassination in Beirut of the Prime Minister Rafik Hariri. And in downtown Beirut today, thousands of people have gathered to commemorate and pay tribute to the former leader. And there are still investigations, there are still questions about how many people are involved. A few years ago, a UN-backed court in 2020 found that 1 member of the Iranian-backed militant group Hezbollah guilty for involvement in his killing. Assad's Syria, before his fall, there were many cases implicating his regime in that too. Let's get the latest from Jenny Shin.
20 years after his death, thousands have gathered in Beirut to honor the memory of Rafik Hariri. The former prime minister was killed in a suicide truck bomb explosion on the 14th of February 2005, an attack in the Lebanese capital that killed 21 other people and injured over 200. Attending the commemorations, the new prime minister Nawaf Salam and his son Saad Hariri, himself a former prime minister.
After 20 years, Rafik Hariri's project continues. Thanks to you, it continues. It continues no matter what. Those who tried to assassinate the project, look at what happened to them.
Saad Hariri left power in 2019 before going into exile in Dubai after a series of political and financial failures. But today he's poised to make a return to the political scene amid the election of a new president and the weakening of Iranian influence in Lebanon. In 2022, 2 members of the militant group Hezbollah were convicted by a UN-backed tribunal for their role in Rafik Hariri's murder.
Let's bring you up to date with developments in the DRC in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. We are 2 weeks on now since Goma was seized by Rwandan-backed rebel fighters, the March the 23rd group, known as M23. Today, we're hearing that they have taken a town further south, or at least an airport further south, close to a major city of Bukavu. This is one of their aims, the group has said. In the meantime, the UN has said at least 4,000 civilians have been killed. African leaders have been working to try to contain the conflict from spiraling. Earlier, we heard from Emmett Livingston, our correspondent in Kinshasa, on what he knows about this latest grab by the group.
So the M23 has entered Bukavu Airport, according to several humanitarian and security sources that we have spoken to. A senior Congolese military official confirms the presence of M23 fighters and Rwandan troops, but he says the Congolese armed forces are around the airport and that fighting continues. The M23, for its part, has claimed that it has taken the airport. Either way, there's fighting happening in the airport. This is an extremely important development because Kavumu is a highly strategic Congolese military base and is considered the very last bastion of defense before the city of Bukavu, which is the second largest in eastern Congo.
Emmett Livingston in Kinshasa. We're hearing today that Pope Francis has been admitted to hospital, has been treated for bronchitis. We're hearing from the Vatican to say that he's got a minor respiratory infection. It means he's not likely to do he's not likely to be there on Sunday for Mass at the Vatican, but they're saying that he's had a week of troubles with his breathing and he's still got to undergo more diagnostic tests. So they're just coming from the Vatican. Let's bring it up to date with something a little Valentine's-y, a kiss that, in some sense, went a bit far. This is a kayaker in Chile. It's footage of Adrian Simancas, who was paddling off the Patagonian city of Punta Arenas. Take a look at this. A humpback whale briefly swallows him before he spits him out, unharmed, but all captured by his father, stunned. This is his father who said, yeah, relax, relax, he can be heard shouting, as if it was going to make a difference inside. Maybe it did. Anyway, it's a happy ever after story. It's not particularly romantic. He's alive. Stay with us here on World View. We'll be back in just a moment. You're watching Worldview with me, Gavin Lee. Up next, it's time for People and Profit, and a look back at Paris AI Summit with Charles Pellegrin.
Hello and welcome to People and Profit. I'm Charles Pellegrin. The AI Action Summit is over. Paris's Grand Palais now stands empty after the likes of Emmanuel Macron, Narendra Modi, J.D. Vance, Sam Altman, and Sundar Pichai took to the stage to praise the benefits of artificial intelligence and claim their stake in its future. But what can we take from it? In a bid to make up for lost time, Europe and France have pledged significant boosts in AI investments and promised to keep regulations from stifling innovation. The US has vowed to remain the dominant force in the field, and China was eager to play the part of the responsible actor, signing on to a joint declaration to, quote, ensure AI is open, inclusive, transparent, ethical, safe, secure, and trustworthy, and making AI sustainable for people and the planet. A statement which the US and UK refused to sign. Here to discuss what's happened here in Paris are Sacha Ruben, European head
let me
of
just
generative AI.
quickly just plug one product here. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Max 14 or the Max 35. Take it every day. Take a teaspoon a day, swish it in your mouth, gargle about 20-30 seconds, and then swallow. You're going to improve your immune system. It's part of the first pillar of my core protocol for good health, boosting up your immune system, and slowing down the aging process. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Max 14 or the Max 35. Take a teaspoon a day, every day. If you're not feeling well because of the cold season, what you want to do is take a tablespoon or two a day. Again, put it in your mouth, swish it around, gargle 20, 30 seconds, and then swallow. Very easy. It's going to improve the epithelial lining in your oral cavity and in your oral pharynx and maintain that mucosal barrier and boost up your immune system. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, use discount 5, and you get $5 off any order.
Governance frameworks, but also in terms of very concrete applications of what this technology can do.
Alexandre Zapolsky, what about you?
So I think so. France, President Macron, they have shown that France and Europe are in the place. I mean, I'm not sure that it was so clear for everyone, but after this summit, I think it's absolutely clear. We have the energy, we have the community, something absolutely important. You said it, everyone was here, not only the government. It's a big difference between Bitchute Park and, of course, the Korean summit, because it was online. Here we had absolutely everyone in the same place, the government, the entrepreneur, the civil society. And so everyone was here together. And maybe to understand also that AI is not only a business. AI is also a question of which kind of world we want, which kind of society we want, and the code that has been signed by more than 60 countries, I think is absolutely the main takeaway of this event.
A statement signed by 61 countries, except obviously the big one, the United States. And we're going to talk about the place that Europe finds itself in compared to the US. One stat from last year in terms of funds raised in the AI space in the US, I think it was around $47 billion, whereas in France and Germany together it was $2.5 billion. So will this summit actually bridge the gap?
One of the key findings that we found in our report is that actually last year, more than 3 million businesses in the EU adopted AI. That's more than the adoption rate of mobile phones in the early 2000s, and it actually represents more than 5 businesses a minute, which is extraordinary in terms of the effervescence and the opportunity. What we do see, however, is that there's an emergence of a kind of two-tier economy where startups are adopting AI at a faster rate than larger businesses. So I think the key question is how do we move from kind of efficiency and productivity gains to operational transformation, both in the startups, but also in the bigger enterprise companies in France and beyond. And in this report that we've just published and launched on the margins of the Action Summit, we see that Europe has everything it needs to succeed. But there are 3 key blockers that need to be addressed. One is the regulatory uncertainty, and that is something that came up a lot in the Action Summit. In the EU, for example, we found that more than 68% of European businesses struggle to understand their obligations under the EU AI Act, and actually more than 40 euros of each 100 euros of businesses of all sizes goes to addressing compliance questions. And so in order to realize the vision of, for example, a digital single market, we need to make sure that these regulations are harmonized and that companies across the EU have the clarity necessary so that they can scale. Because fundamentally, companies like Linagora want to be French and European champions, but they also want to be global champions. And that's one of the key things that we see in terms of blockers. The second piece that we found in this report that we just launched is that businesses are coming to us to say, look, we have the technology, we know what we want to do with it, we know our business challenge, but we don't have the skills necessary inside of our company to address the challenges that we would like to face. And so really investing in skills building inside of companies, but across educational systems, and France has been the leader in this, and a lot of their initiatives is really key. And then thirdly, speaking to your point, one of the key blockers to accelerating AI adoption is lack of investment. And in fact, businesses that we talked to across the EU said that government incentives and public funding and private investment from VCs is actually one of the key levers to unlocking the opportunities of this technology. So skills, investment, and regulatory clarity, that will make the EU competitive.
Speaking of the finances, during the summit, we had Macron announced 109 billion euros in AI investments in France. Von der Leyen sort of bouncing on the EU AI Champions Initiative of major corporations in the EU, promising 150 billion and adding 50 billion on top of that euros. Was that the signal as an entrepreneur in the tech space? Was that the signal that you were hoping for in terms of accessing that financing that generally is more available on the other side of the Atlantic?
Since the emergence of the open source AI, and since the big waves from DeepSeek, from China, everyone has understood that it's not needed to raise billions of dollars or euros to be as competitive as the best in class. With open source, and that's the beauty of open source AI, everyone has his chance to compete on the global market. You're absolutely right, Sasha, but it's not a question of money, it's a question of impact. And so we are in the race. France is in the race. Europe is in the race. What we need more than money, because there is a lot of money on the market. You said it. It's no more an issue in France and Europe. No, the main issue is about the data sets. When you do open source AI, you need to have access to open source data sets. And we have not a lot, but we have some big data set to train our model. Linabora just released his own model that we have used to train Lucy. 3 trillion of tokens. It's a lot. It has been downloaded more than 65,000 of times from Hugging Face. So it starts to scale. People, they have understood that we have done something huge with that. But after the phase of training of your AI, you need a phase of post-training. And this instruct phase, it's where you teach to your AI, so for example, for our Lucy, to interact normally with human people. And this phase, we need to have more data on this phase. And that's the main challenge that we address, the open source AI address. And yeah, we need to work on that direction.
I just want to go back on these challenges that you're facing, and you talked about Lucy. You launched a first version of the chatbot earlier in January, and it faced quite a lot of criticism and mockery, let's be honest, about notably some absurd answers where Lucy was hailing the benefits of cow's eggs and all that stuff. Did that sort of, in a way, signify sort of the place that Europe finds itself in this race?
So, as I said, what we are missing is this specific data set, this question and answer to teach and to make new AI able to understand either language or a context or to interact with humans. And for this reason, we decided for our research, because Lucy is first a research project for the moment, it's not a product. And so we released this Lucy.chat, where we propose to our community, the OpenLLM France community, to interact with Lucy. But we didn't think that so many people, they will join and they will try to use Lucy and so on, and they have tested the model like if it was a product, but it was not. And so the Lucy is not yet totally trained. That's why the results are not so good. There are like GPT-2, which is at least not so bad, but we want to have Lucy as the same level as the best in class. And so we are working on this in that direction, and you are going to see Lucy that is going to come.
What's interesting here is that these frontier models, like Gemini, ChatGPT, OpenAI, X1 by Elon, and some others, it takes an awful lot of computational power and time and money to train the model. All right. Now I don't know the underlying architecture of the model. It's probably neural networking, using neural networking to train the model. That's my gut feeling, but I don't know for sure on how that's done. Nor do I care. But the thing is that as the point I'm making is, as these frontier models are built out, there'll be other language models that are built on top of them that will be more specific to your needs in industry. And once many of these AI species, I'll call them species, as more of these LLM species populate the environment and more people use them and they're training off of their particular data set, a lot of this stuff is going to be proprietary. It's going to be done in-house when computational power starts to go down. Because this is analogous to mainframe computers before PCs, right? But once AI becomes desktop, all right, and it seems to be rapidly approaching that, what will happen is corporations and even homes will have their own kind of little version of LLM that piggybacked off of a frontier model. So what happens is that these companies, once there's more LLM species out there, these frontier companies aren't going to be, they won't have the competitive advantage. They won't have, they'll lose their first mover advantage. Because what will happen is now you piggybacked off of a large frontier model. You've trained your data set. You've trained it. You've grown it over time for your particular industry, and you no longer need a piggyback. So now, what's the use of the frontier model? Unless they create something even bigger, even a more powerful frontier model. But I see that I see that the frontier model usage gets to a point where it's an S curve, where it's very few people were using it, and then now we're in the hockey stick point, but just starting where it's rapid growth of usage of the frontier models, the Chat GPTs, the Geminis, right? But then there's going to be a lot of smaller LLMs being trained off of these frontier models. And then all of a sudden, the use of the frontier model will start to plateau, maybe even decline, but at the very least plateau. So it's an S curve. So over time, the number of users will, the amount of usage measured in hours or in days or however you want to measure it, will flatten out, maybe even decline, because smaller LLMs have been piggybacking off of that LLM and trained to be used for a particular industry. And what they were saying about Lucy is kind of like what I'm talking about here. It's what happens is some of these species are going to be open source, some of it's going to be closed sourced. But the key is that you're piggybacking off of you're benefiting from the computational power that was already established with the frontier model. And you're building a narrow AI for your particular use. Now, these frontier models will go through other iterations to get to AGI, artificial general intelligence. But the average person isn't going to need AGI. So the real use cases, in the near term, are going to be training off of your data in your company, your industry, and how to use this data. But once it's trained, I mean, how much retraining does the AI need to be? Well, there may be some iterative process, but the bulk of the computation to train is going to be at the early stage. And once you have it trained, then the AI does its thing. And once you know what the AI is doing and how to solve a problem, then you already have the solution. So why do you need the AI anymore? Yes, you can automate things with AI. So the AI is continuously, using that automation process, right? But a lot of these narrow AI programming your local LLM, it's heavily intense computation at the beginning. But once you have the solution, then, once the AI knows what to do with its inputs, it's quick. But it has to train to know what to do. That takes a lot of computation. Just like learning to walk takes a lot of practices, right? And a lot of falling, a lot of bruised knees, and right. But then once you know how to walk, then walking's really easy. You don't have to go through months of training on how to walk and coordinating your muscles. It's very similar to what LLM training is. So I suspect the need for the frontier models, once there's a lot of LLMs that have been created, piggybacking off of the frontier model, you won't need the frontier models for most people. Because there'll be large LLMs, but smaller than the frontier model, that will be used to piggyback off of even smaller LLMs. And then those LLMs will grow and then eventually be used to piggyback for smaller LLMs. So it's almost a fractal. It starts with the frontier model, like ChatGPT, and then other models build off of that. So they're smaller, but those smaller LLMs will grow. And then there will be LLMs that piggyback off of those LLMs, and then they will grow, and it's a fractal. And over time, you're moving away from the original frontier model. So you actually see this evolutionary process through fractals, this evolutionary process of LLMs and these different species of AIs. So that's my take on it. But okay, let's go to Bloomberg here. I want to see what's going on with the U.S. yields.
Taking up a lot of discussion at the moment, simply because my job for many years has been really easy. When the US is good, Europe is good. When the US is bad, Europe is bad. But that's simply not how things are at the moment. Right. Now the US is unusually good for the tailwinds we spoke about earlier. But the rest of the world is unfortunately unusually bad for a number of different reasons that, in my view, start with the weakness in China and the problems that China is facing for demographic reasons, because of the housing bubble bursting and because of the trade war. All those things are weighing on German exports and European exports, and also weighing on the global outlook. So I would say, in short, it really is US policy. Where is it going? How significant will be? What will actually be implemented? What will not be implemented? And then this other challenge that is that the US is pretty good, but the rest of the world is unfortunately unusually weak. And can that diversion continue?
Hey, just got 30 seconds left here, Torsten. You started your career at the IMF. You spent time at Deutsche Bank, some short stints at BofA. I am just curious, and now at Apollo, what's the difference in being an economist at maybe kind of a traditional bank, a big bank, versus being at something like Apollo, a big asset management firm? We just got about 30 seconds left.
Yeah, that's a very important question. So with Deutsche, I used to spend almost all my time going to clients and also traveling around the world, but discussing with people in markets, of course, customers of Deutsche Bank in rates, equities, FX, all types of areas for business. We were having a discussion about what's going on. In Apollo, I spent a significant amount of time internally talking to deal teams. That's why there's more internal focus here than what I had before.
Very cool stuff. Great story. Great to get some time with you. We love reading your research. Torsten Slok, Chief Economist Partner at Apollo Global Management, and our own Ben Stuberman, wealth reporter at Bloomberg News. Check his story out on the Bloomberg.
Let me just plug a product here, but the ones that are on X Spaces, I appreciate you listening. And if you have any questions, just ask for the mic. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the toothpaste. This is a structural nano silver toothpaste. It's a very high quality toothpaste. It's fluoride free. It whitens your teeth, freshens your breath, reduces inflammation at the gum line, improves your gum line. It neutralizes pathogens that produce plaque. And with good oral hygiene, you're reducing your chances of cardiovascular disease and valvular disease. This is the best toothpaste. No kidding. I'm not speaking in the hyperbole here. This is the best toothpaste that you could buy. Way better than anything that Alex Jones sells. So why not support my work and get a few tubes of this toothpaste? It's something that I use. And not only that, it's the highest quality toothpaste that you can buy. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get a few tubes of this toothpaste. Make sure you use discount 5, and you get $5 off any order. All right. Let's go to France 24 here.
With fourth power unit of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The fire has been extinguished. As of now, radiation levels have not increased and are being constantly monitored.
The damage is located in a highly sensitive area. A massive metal dome covering the reactor that exploded in April 1986. The outer shell that was hit was erected over the remains of the reactor in 2016 to stop future leaks. There's also an inner protective structure that was not damaged.
I remember. Now, you know, I'm an older person, I guess, but I remember the Chernobyl accident. All right. And the thing is, we're still living the echo of that through this whole warfare in Ukraine. And it also is a hint or a warning to humans, to the human race, that we are playing around with technologies, and we are playing around with certain engineered systems that we cannot fully control, that there are black swan events that take place. Now, my first introduction of black swans was a course that I took during my MBA. All right, it was a management course, and it was talking about how complex systems that you engineer could drift away from the designed intent and cause a catastrophe. Now, back then, the terms in the literature were considered flying pigs. They were called flying pigs. All right. And my professor, I don't remember his name, but the one that was teaching the class, that was his last class because he was retiring. And it was an interesting class, but that was my first exposure to this concept of chaos and black swans and flying pigs, or whatever you want to use the term. And one of the examples is you can have an engineered system like a nuclear power plant where everything seems to be in control with safety systems and backup systems and backup systems and all this stuff. But there lurks the flying pig, right? And something that's not supposed to happen happens. Like pigs aren't supposed to fly, but it happens. Now, a better term to use is actually black swan, which is a rare bird, right? It's not common to see a swan that's black. But in the literature back then, there were terms called flying pigs. So, but the key here is we are playing around with stuff. AI, nuclear power, geoengineering. We're playing around with stuff we don't fully understand. Even the immune system that we don't fully understand, it has lots of feedback loops. And when you have feedback loops, that's where the black swan lurks. You think you understand, but you really don't. So we have a war that's going on in the Eastern Front, right? And something bad could really happen. Something that wasn't planned. Someone launches a missile, it's misfired or wrong coordinates or whatever, blows up Chernobyl or blows up another nuclear plant. All right. We've had close calls so far, but we're playing around with stuff that when there is a catastrophe, which could be low probability, it's very, very high impact. Now, what can we learn from nuclear power and the accident from Chernobyl with artificial intelligence and AGI, artificial general intelligence? We have people like Sam Altman that think they really understand what they're playing around with. They don't. Sam Altman is not wise enough to do what he's doing. He's too young, inexperienced, and there are some issues with his his personal behavior. So there's an ethical problem with him. And when you have ethical problems that seem to be antithetical to biblical principles, and you play around with technologies that you don't fully understand and are put up on a pedestal by media, by big finance, as if they are a guru, guess what? Black swans will come out of that. So we have to really pay attention on what's going on with artificial intelligence and how it's going to affect the job market. I've spent a lot of time. I got an MBA in finance. I worked in corporate, finance. I did institutional trading. I've traded financial markets to an extreme at a personal level and at an institutional level. I have a Ph.D. in finance. All right. I know quite a bit about finance and economics. No one in the world has been able to explain what will happen and using economic principles, economic law, economic theory, what will happen in an artificial intelligent world where there's a decoupling of labor and capital. No one understands at the economic or financial level, no one understands it. There's no economic theory to explain what happens when labor and capital decouple. Because the way our whole society works is labor and capital are coupled, where people invest in businesses, people are employed, and then people use that money to buy goods and services. But when less people are employed, or no one's employed, and all activity to the extreme is done by an AGI, what happens to an economy that's debt laden? How do bonds get paid? Where's the tax revenue? How does individuals eat? How do they pay their mortgage? Do they go to school? Because most people go to school to get skills to be employed. The whole society is predicated on this coupling between labor and capital. And this is the reason why Sam Altman and all these artificial intelligence gurus, they're leading us down a road they don't understand. They don't understand. I'm wise enough to say, I don't understand the economic theory. Nor does anyone. No one has articulated what the economic theory is going to be when labor and capital decouple with artificial intelligence. But yet they're telling you, make sure that you download, ChatGPT search engine or whatever for your phone. Start programming it by asking. When you ask a question, guess what? These frontier models are learning. They're learning as you're asking. So you are helping. You are an agent to program, to teach the AI that will eventually decouple labor and capital. So you are literally training slowly your replacement, your economic replacement. What does this mean? All these Nobel Prize winners in economics can't explain it. All these PhDs can't explain it. All these people that are funding these damn companies can't explain it. What is going to happen? No one knows. It's a big, black hole. And this is a serious question that I am asking here. Something that is getting to the core of human existence. What do we do?
Stericycle acquisition, we closed on that in November. What I'm really excited about is we financed that transaction at a great time. I just heard you speaking about it feels wonderful. Yeah, our all-in borrowing costs are currently hovering just north of 4%. for the total enterprise. So we're in a great position.
Davina, one thing to follow up on this, talk to us a little bit about what's driving costs for you. We saw higher inflation readings this week, and so I'm wondering, how are you seeing that in your business?
Yeah, it's another great question. And what I would tell you is we are a human capital intensive business. At WM, we're more than 60,000 strong. And so labor inflation is certainly the place that we watch the most. And we continue to expect labor inflation will be in the 4 to 5% range. We had planned for that coming into 2025. In addition to thinking about labor inflation, we work really hard to ensure that we're more and more efficient every day. So our cost to serve is not just about cost inflation, it's about our ability to drive automation and efficiency across work streams.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about the acquisition, just going back there, and you guys have talked about increased synergies of $250 million that could be realized in 3 years. Some are concerned that there isn't that much overlap and that those synergies will be tough to realize. What could you give us or tell us in terms of the progress you have made on that or expect to?
Yeah, you know, for us, we're really optimistic about realizing that $250 million over the 3-year period. It's in 3 buckets. 1 is internalization, 2 is operating effectiveness and efficiency, and 3 is back office or SG&A. The place that we're most bullish is in the back office and SG&A part of the cost equation. For Stericycle today, they're running an SG&A as a percentage of revenue of over 24%. WM is approaching 9%. There's a lot of headroom between those 2 numbers, and we know that we're going to be able to move the dial on that pretty effectively over the next 3 years.
To follow up on that, you
listen to in between the sentences. You read the fine print of some of these institutional investors. I used to be one, so I do know what I'm talking about here. You listen and you read the fine print. Listen in between the lines. What is a common theme that they're saying? Automation. They're trying to reduce costs, labor costs, labor inflation. So there's going to be a push, just like back during NAFTA days in late 1990s and early 2000s, where there was a push to lower manufacturing costs and move to a low-cost center. And we gutted our manufacturing in the United States. Same thing is going to be happening. The first wave of this is people are going to lose their jobs because of automation, because of AI. And then the companies that do it first, they're going to get premium in the stock price. And so the shareholders are going to make a lot of money. Then all of a sudden, enough of these companies do the same thing. And over time, I can't say how many years, but over time, what will happen is less and less people are going to be employed because more and more companies have automated their processes using AI. So that means that maybe not all the workforce is supplanted or dislocated, but many will be. And what do these people do? Especially older workers that are like, maybe in their 50s. They could still work. They have lots of skills, but no one wants to hire them. Or someone that's coming out of college and a company doesn't need to hire them because they have an AGI. And what happens is that now you have deflation because you have now people that aren't buying products, aren't paying their mortgage. People are defaulting. Now, do you understand what I mean by when the decoupling of labor and capital starts to happen? In the very beginning, companies are going to be rewarded by Wall Street, but then it'll accelerate and become deflationary. And then you will start seeing defaults and then bank runs and this idea of depositors aren't depositing money because they're not getting a wage. So there will be balance sheet stress on the banks. They'll need a bailout or a bail-in. Now, do you understand what I'm talking about? with the decoupling of labor and capital? Oh, it's much more complicated than how Sam Altman explains it. Sam Altman is an idiot.
We think that that comes from strong execution, from pricing discipline, operating excellence, automation of the business where we can, and ensuring that we are customer-centric and people-centric. And those things have created strong success, even in the tough days of
Right.
COVID environment, and it speaks to the resilience of our business model, and we expect that to continue.
Okay, only because we ask everybody, we've only got about 30 seconds. AI, how does that play into your business? Does it? Just real quickly.
Yeah, certainly. We've got great things happening across the board, whether it's how we engage with our customers through chatbots, whether it's how we code. But the more exciting parts are the optical sorters within our recycling facilities. It's amazing what we've been able to do to automate that part of the business. And so we're going to continue to focus on using technology to be a better operator and provide better solutions for our customers.
Well, so glad to get some time with you, Nina. Thank you, not Nina, Davina, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Davina, of course, Rankin, she's the CFO of Waste Management, joining us there from Houston, which is where, of course, they are based, and of course, our own Bloomberg News senior editor, Nina Trentman. Do be sure to check out the Bloomberg CFO Briefing newsletter. You can find it at bloomberg.com/CFO/briefing, and also find it on the Bloomberg.
Well, he's a star agent.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take this stack to help improve your cardiovascular health. But it also, part of the stack is going to help with your bone density too, and I'll mention that. Omega-3, you should be taking every day. It brings down LDL levels and increases your HDL levels. It'll also prevent your red blood cells from oversticking, preventing blood clots. All right. So omega-3 you should be taking every day to help with your lipid profile. By helping your lipid profile, you're reducing the LDL, and then less LDL in your bloodstream, less oxidized LDL means less plaque buildup. Nattokinase breaks up clots because it's fibrinolytic, but it also helps to bring down LDL levels and HDL levels. It's synergistic with omega-3 to bring down those LDL levels and improve your total cholesterol. Again, by doing that, you reduce plaque buildup. D3 helps to absorb calcium. It's a gene expression cofactor, gets rid of cells that need to go into apoptosis. But it also, when coupled with K2, helps to prevent calcium from depositing in these plaques. So you're reducing plaque buildup, all right? But also, when you stack these together and you do resistance training and you're taking calcium supplements and collagen, and you're doing that resistance training, that weight training, you're going to, over time, build bone density. So this stack right here is really important for bone health. But you have to take calcium. Now, I drink milk every day, so that's how I get my calcium. Some people take calcium supplements. That's okay too. But you need to do resistance training because you need to send that signal to that area of the body where the body will say, deposit more bone, improve the joint health, improve the tendons and the ligaments. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the D3, the K2. It's great for bone health. You do resistance training, but also stack it with nattokinase and omega-3, and that's a powerful cardiovascular health stack. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and use discount 5, and you get $5 off. I do have a longevity cardiovascular box. It's discounted compared to just adding up just individual items, and you can add discount 5 on top of that. So it behooves you to go and get the longevity cardiovascular health box and use discount 5 on top of it. So I want you to get healthy. I've tried many ways to stack these things. So please go to my store, the the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5. Get those anti-aging boxes. Get those longevity boxes. Get the supplements to improve your health. And like I said, the stack I just told you is a great way to improve your cardiovascular fitness and your cardiovascular health.
That is something impressive and stands out.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things to note with Emmanuel as well is that not included in his net worth estimate, he also has some reported personal outside investments as well. He's rumored to be an early investor in Uber, also a reported founding stake in the Rain Group, this merchant bank that's been involved in some pretty major deals for Manchester United, SoundCloud, the Los Angeles Clippers, and Steve Ballmer. So his net worth could be significantly higher with those assets as well.
Was the HBO show Entourage good for him?
Yes, I have to admit, I haven't seen the show myself, but Emmanuel was the inspiration for Ari Gould, who's Jeremy Piven's character in that show. It's funny. I mean, I'm not sure to what extent he really engages with that. I think he said a few times that he never watched a ton of the show, but yeah, definitely a pop culture connection there.
But the Endeavor still has these huge A-list clients. I mean, the president no longer is his client right now, but Matt Damon has been a client. Oprah Winfrey, as you read, has been a client.
Exactly. Yeah, really one of the major talent agencies in Hollywood. And also they've diversified out of that as well. They purchased ING in 2014 and took with them a lot of major sports clients, in tennis, and I believe Joe Burrow's on their list, the Cincinnati Bengals quarterback. So a lot of really major A-listers inside and outside of the entertainment world.
Well, but we've really not learned anything. We talk about that Elon-backed group that is going after OpenAI. He's part of that group.
He is, yes. So he was named in that. This is the, $97.4 billion bid to buy out the nonprofit, which controls OpenAI. And yes, Emmanuel was listed as one of the reported investors.
Which I thought was kind of interesting among the group of investors. His name really kind of stood out.
Yeah, we don't know anything about his stake.
Think about it. It's let me give you an example of why Sam Altman is someone that you need to worry about. Not only does he have problems with ethics, he doesn't understand the technology that he's building out that could cause a major externality to the human race and existential threat. But not just that, the term OpenAI is a canard. It's closed AI.
To go. Was it particularly difficult to value Emmanuel's assets, given that the majority of his wealth is in this public company, or was this one of the rather more straightforward ones?
Yeah, well, our timing here is actually pretty lucky in the sense that Endeavor's actually on its way to going private. So we have kind of a limited window where we can really get a good look at Emmanuel's holdings. So Silver Lake, private equity firm, its majority shareholder, is taking the company private. The deal is expected to close sometime in Q1 of this year. We'll see about that. The stock has actually risen quite a bit, so there's some potential litigation from shareholders. We're going to be seeking a better bid because the stock is up so much.
Stories. Stay tuned. Dylan Sloan, wealth reporter at Bloomberg News. Thank you so much. For those watching on television, the close coming your way in just a moment. Tim and I continue.
All right. So we have the S&P 500 is at 6,117. NASDAQ's at 20,006. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the structural nanosilver gel. I have it in 2 different methods of use here. You can use the dispenser, the quick dispenser, or the tube form. But get some structural nanosilver gel. It's a dual purpose product. Have it ready at your work or at home. If you're not feeling well or the people sick around you, it's really important to put it on your hands, around your mouth, around your eyes, around your ears. Lightly coat your nostrils. It stays active for 5 hours. It also helps to heal your skin. A cut, an abrasion, a minor burn, they'll speed the healing process by 1/3. And it's not only helping with wounds, but it also, you can apply it every day on your skin. And a great way to do it is to put it on your skin at night and then exfoliate in the morning, and then your skin's healthier topically. Also, I have a skincare box called the Anti-Aging Skincare Health Box, beginners and advanced, where you have the structural nanosilver gel, vitamin C, and collagen. Now, what that skincare box does is that you're improving your skin health at the topical layer with the silver gel, but your dermal layer will improve with the collagen and the vitamin C when you drink filtered water. Because you need about 32 to 64 ounces of filtered water a day with this throughout the day. And that water will cross-link with the vitamin C and the collagen and improve your dermal layer. So this takes care of your topical part of your skin, the top layer. The middle layer is the collagen and the vitamin C and the filtered water. And then the advanced box has resveratrol and C60 in it, which helps with the basal layer, and that's where your stem cells are to produce new skin. All right, your skin recycles and sheds. And the upper layer has more keratin, while the lower layer has the least amount of keratin. So use this as a skincare, but there's other purposes too. In addition, if you shave, let's say a guy shaves their face, using this as an aftershave helps to soothe that shaving experience. Women, if you're shaving your legs, use this on your legs, and this will help the razor burn and soothe the skin after you shave your legs. So this has a dual purpose. But again, use it when people around you are not feeling too well. It works great, stays active for 5 hours. It's way better than Perel. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, use discount 5, and you get $5 off any order. All right, let's go back to France 24 here.
This complaint. We want to understand and know better exactly what was Apple doing with these recordings. In my personal case, when I worked for this subcontractor in Ireland, I was supposed to listen to 1,300 recordings a day, and there were dozens, if not hundreds of us back in Cork, Ireland. That was one of several sites in Europe in which there were subcontractors and people who were listening to these recordings in order to annotate them. But now Apple has responded saying that this is very much a necessary process if they want to streamline Siri and their voice recognition system in order to understand their users better. How do you respond to that? Well, maybe it's a necessity for the company, but then what about regulation? Are they compliant with the law? Are they compliant with European law? Are they compliant with French law? Are they compliant in every country in which they proceed with this type of data collection system? And we're not talking about just 100 or a few hundred recordings. We're talking about millions. In their 2019 statement, they said we only use 0.2% of the total amount of recordings we collect through Siri for this project. So the question is, what is the total amount of recordings that they actually collect every year, and for which purpose? That's what we're asking today with this complaint.
And how many recordings had you got through by the time that you thought enough was enough?
46,000.
46,000.
I need to just, if you can give me a second about this, I think this is important. I was not aware of what I was supposed to do until the first day I got there in Cork, Ireland. And when they told me that I was actually going to work on actual recordings of actual people talking to their vocal assistant. This brings me to another very important point. You're susceptible to being recorded even when you're not activating your vocal assistant. That's also one.
So you don't have to say, hello, Siri. None of that. It's recording as you're just with the next to you.
Look, what I can say for certain is that I heard recordings of people who were absolutely not talking to the vocal assistant. And the question, again, is when does it activate and what type of recordings do they have access to? I think we need a proper investigation into this matter, and it's long time due, actually.
And is there any hope of that investigation coming?
I am very hopeful, yes, that there's something something is happening right now, because the momentum has changed given that Apple has proposed a settlement back in January 2025 in California, a $90 million settlement, which is, in my opinion, very little. And so this is also a matter of European sovereignty. My opinion is that we have data protection authorities, that we have legislation here in Europe that is supposed to be protective for us EU citizens and for the people who live in the European Union. So now is the time to activate it. We're actually pretty late.
Now, we will see if it's not too late, in fact, but thanks to your efforts, I guess the story is very much moving forward. Thomas, unfortunately, that's where we have to end it here. But Thomas Bagnet, thank you so much for just speaking to us here and providing your insight. Thomas, of course, running the whistleblower on this Syria issue here on France 24. Now, we move over to the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference, where US Vice President J.D. Vance has been holding a meeting with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. The talks are seen as a key moment for Kyiv as it tries to keep Washington on side. That all follows Donald Trump's announcement of peace efforts with Russia and Vladimir Putin. Here's just a bit of what was said by Zelensky and then J.D. Vance.
Yeah, we're thankful for the support President Trump. Good conversation today. Our first meeting, not last, sure, and really what we need to speak more, to work more, and to prepare the plan how to stop Putin and finish the war. We want peace very much, but we need real security guarantees, and we will continue our meetings and our work, and we will be very happy to see General Cavalcante.
Fundamentally, the goal is, as President Trump outlined it, we want the war to come to a close. We want the killing to stop, but we want to achieve a durable, lasting peace, not the kind of peace that's going to have Eastern Europe in conflict just a couple years down the road. So we have a number of good conversations about how we might accomplish that together, and certainly we'll have many more in the days, weeks, and months to come.
Let's get some reaction now with France 24's Emmanuel Chaz, and she joins us from Kyiv. Emmanuel, we heard from both leaders there, Zelensky and J.D. Vance, very much a diplomatic, getting to know each other, it almost seemed. And yet there was a lot of stuff said, which we didn't hear there. What do you take away from those meetings?
Well, first, Volodymyr Zelensky was expected by Ukrainians to have this meeting also as a response to what happened earlier that week, this phone call between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin discussing the future of Ukraine without Ukraine. That really didn't go down well here in Kyiv for people. They really felt left out. They really felt betrayed and abandoned by the US, even if just that phone call doesn't mean that negotiations will take place. It doesn't mean that a ceasefire will be agreed upon, and it doesn't mean a peace deal will be reached, but it excluded Ukraine. So that meeting per se was important for Ukrainians for that matter. What I take away from it is that Volodymyr Zelensky made clear that he wanted a real security guarantees for Ukraine in order to consider a peace deal. He also said that he would sit only with one Russian, and that would be Vladimir Putin, and that in itself was already a huge compromise for the from the Ukrainian side, given that Ukraine is the country that has been attacked, that is currently under Russian attack, and now Russia is the aggressor. That is a compromise that Kyiv is ready to do. Kyiv is also ready, says Volodymyr Zelensky, to consider a peace plan if it is being discussed both by Trump and by the European Union. So all allies together, and not just Washington, and not just when Washington talks directly to Moscow. He's also been saying that it was a good meeting he had with Vice President J.D. Vance. It was their first time meeting, and Volodymyr Zelensky also said that he would keep on working on the document being a disagreement between Kyiv and Washington on the exploitation of rare earth minerals that Donald Trump was mentioning also a few days ago, that if a trade agreement could be established, then the US would offer security guarantees to Ukraine. And as we've heard, J.D. Vance talked about wanting a durable, lasting peace in Ukraine, in order not to have a war starting again in a few years' time, but also he launched a blistering attack against EU leaders and against EU values. He called out democracies for not listening to the will of its people. He said, of their people. He said that free speech was endangered in Europe, in between other things, and that really didn't go down well in Germany, especially Germany, which is hosting this conference in Munich. The defense minister of Germany, Boris Pistorius, called out J.D. Vance on this speech. He said, democracy was just called into question by the US vice president, and that is not acceptable. Also, because that was not the object of the meeting. The meeting was very much to talk about defense and security, and that's not something that J.D. Vance addressed in that part of his speech.
And we also had the EU's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, saying that it felt like the United States was trying to pick a fight with Europe. But one thing that was ominous by its absence in that speech was the fact that J.D. Vance did not mention Ukraine once when he was addressing European leaders in the Munich Security Conference. Surely that will worry Kyiv at this point.
It definitely worries Kyiv. It is, however, in line with his previous stances before he was vice president. Remember, he had refused to meet Volodymyr Zelensky, and he had made very clear that he didn't care which way this war was going for Ukrainians, one way or another. Ukraine was not on top of his agenda as a senator, and it doesn't seem that the US wants to step up its support to Ukraine. On the contrary, it wants Europe to step up and to take the US's place when it comes to ensuring Ukraine's defense here, and Ukraine is still very much under Russian attack. I would like to mention that while this conference is ongoing, and also this speech by J.D. Vance was actually much welcomed by Russian media, by Russian state media also. That gives you an idea as to who is pleased with Washington's policies at the moment, and it's very much not Ukraine. And just also to give you the full picture, not only did we have 48 hours ago ballistic missiles here upon our heads, over our heads in the capital Kyiv. Last night, the fourth reactor of Chernobyl nuclear power plant was also under attack when a kamikaze drone launched by Russia crashed into the container of the power plant. The radiation level stayed the same, but there was a fire. It has been extinguished, but Volodymyr Zelensky and other leaders here in Ukraine called this as a terrorist attack and warned the world that such attacks could be a danger for the entire international community, not just for Ukraine.
And it just shows you how immediate and urgent everything is in terms of Ukraine with that support. Emmanuel Chaz, please keep safe as always, and thank you so much for joining us here on France 24. Let's get the latest from the Middle East and those developments around the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas.
I want to go to
militants have now announced the names of the.
I want to go to Bloomberg because they're talking about AI plans to overhaul China iPhones with AI.
Themselves another lever they can pull to potentially make money there.
It almost makes me, listening to you, Mark, that I feel like we're going to be talking about it a lot, but it does feel like this is going to be a one area where maybe all of the big tech guys get involved. They've got the data, right? They've got the AI to actually make these really smart machines potentially, and so maybe
this is the next big area of technology, and I'm not going to understate it. Apple's working on it, Google's working on it, Microsoft has looked at it in the past, and now you've got Meta throwing billions in their name behind it. So this is a big deal.
All right, it still scares us a little bit. We're waiting till the robot's in your kitchen, and you think it's going all really well, served you dinner, cleaned it, and then all of a sudden it's like, you didn't like my roast or something, and it takes over.
Yeah,
how smart?
If the robot made it all like it, it's fine. Hey, Mark, before we let you go, I do want to say we are awaiting comments from the president. This will be tape playback. He made these comments starting a little over an hour ago, as he gets ready to head to Mar-a-Lago for the weekend. We'll bring you those comments when we do get the tape playback beginning. Well, we have you. Apple planning to overhaul China iPhones with AI by the middle of the year. We know you love talking about Apple intelligence or lack thereof. What's going on in China?
Very funny. By the middle of the year, they're going to release a software update that brings artificial intelligence features to iPhones, iPads, and Macs. they're partnering with two companies, Alibaba and Baidu. And we start with Baidu. That's the consumer-facing partnership. Alibaba is more behind the scenes. So Baidu is going to power things like visual intelligence, maybe some integration in Siri. Alibaba is working on what I'm calling a censorship layer or censorship engine on top of Apple's on-device AI models. So Alibaba is going to be essentially a conduit between the Chinese government and regulators and Apple devices to make modifications, block, filter, censor content, what have you, on Apple devices. That's the only way Apple's able to get Apple Intelligence into the market. Now, obviously, this is, to us in the US, this sounds like a privacy nightmare. It sounds like, wow, this is really strange, but that's life in China for all the applications and services that run there.
All right, we're gonna leave it on that note. So glad we could catch up with you, and congratulations.
So they're basically, Apple is capitulating to a big brother national security state, also known as the PLA and the CCP. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. This is the last pillar of the core. It boosts up your metabolism and increases your energy levels. Really important. Because when you have more energy, you move around, you build muscle, you're increasing your bone density, and just your systems work better when you have just more energy. This has 68 nutrients. You can go to my website, read the label, right? It has a lot of great ingredients in here. It's like a superfood, and you'll lose weight if you follow my advice here, all right? This helps with your cardiovascular health, your brain health, your muscles, and your metabolism, and boosts up your energy levels. Now, you take it either in the morning or in the afternoon for lunch, right? Either breakfast or for lunch. There's a big scooper in here. You take 1 scooper a day. You mix it with soft foods, filtered water, or a shake. Some people mix it with milk, a smoothie, but take it once a day. What you'll notice is you'll start to lose weight, but you'll still have your energy levels. So it's a great way to get fit. And when your energy levels get better, then you're going to be willing to work out, and you're going to get strength gains and cardiovascular gains by doing resistance training and cardiovascular training, cardio training. Now, when you take this, take it once a day. All right. Now, it works the best when you couple it with barley. I have 2 types of barley, heirloom barley and gladiator barley. Now, with the heirloom barley, this is not focused on the strength side. It's focused on just the detox, reducing the inflammation, and soaking up free radicals with superoxide dismutase. There's high density protein in here, right? This barley is high density nutritional barley, not something that you get at Whole Foods. This is way better, way, way, way better. Now, you can take it separately, but it works better when you take it with the Boomer Boost. Because when you take it with the Boomer Boost, you're going to be able to control your A1C levels. And you're going to get your protein, the high density protein, bring down inflammation, detox, soak up free radicals with superoxide dismutase. So it's a great combo, right? And you're going to lose weight when you take it once a day when you mix it. All right, now there's a large scooper in here. Now, how I'm going to explain how I do it and then how other people do it. How I do it is that I take a quarter of a scoop a day. All right. But some people prefer to have more protein in their diet. So there are many people that take a half a scoop or a full scoop. Now, the label says take a full scoop. And that's up to you if you want that much protein. But it's high density protein. My recommendation is take a half a scoop. All right. And mix it however you want to mix it, either in filtered water or a smoothie or hummus or yogurt or a shake or however. All right. But I take it I take the barley with the Boomer Boost. So I take a quarter of a scoop and I put it with the Boomer Boost. But that's because I don't want to take too much protein. But what I do is I cycle my workouts. I do a ramp up with high intensity workout, and then over a period of time I ramp it down to heal my body, and then I ramp it back up. So in the ramp down, I take low density. In the ramp up, I would take like, in the ramp down, I would take about a quarter scoop. In the ramp up, you can take more protein to build muscle. Okay. Now, I'm fine tuning my body to this. All right. Most people wouldn't do that. So the average person, take a half a scoop. All right. Now, if you prefer to get more protein in your diet, then take a full scoop. The label says take a full scoop. But what I have noticed for me is it depends on where I'm at in my workout. If I'm in the ramp down, I take a quarter. If I'm in the ramp up, I would take a half scoop. So my recommendation is take a half. But the label is saying take a full scoop. But take it with the Boomer Boost. Now, if you're not taking it with the Boomer Boost, then take a full scoop. All right. But there's a big scooper in here. Take a half. Typically take a half scoop. All right. But mix it. Take them together. Take it for breakfast or lunch. And what you'll notice is you're going to lose weight. All right. Don't eat this and your lunch. This is replacing your lunch. All right. And with that energy levels, and you're just going to feel just healthier. You're going to sleep better. And when you work out, you're going to recover quicker, and you're going to see huge gains. Now, you can take the Gladiator barley if you want to get all the benefits from the heirloom barley, but you'll get strength benefits. And this couples really well with the Myotrol that I was talking about earlier. So mix it with the Myotrol if you want to really supercharge it. Gladiator barley, high density protein. Again, take a half a scoop. And then the best results is to take it with the Boomer Boost. Make sure you do resistance training, and you're really going to get the muscle mass increase, and you're going to have a quicker recovery time. And this combo here controls your A1C levels even better than the Boomer Boost with the heirloom barley, especially when you're working out. All right. So I just gave you the recipe on how to reverse diabetes for most people. All right. Now the key is take it in the morning or in the afternoon for your lunch. It replaces your lunch. Now, however you want to take it is up to you. I take it with hummus. Some people make a shake. Some people mix it with yogurt. Some people put it in milk. Some people, prefer just filtered water. It's up to you. But it's a superfood. When you take these two together, or the Boomer Boost and the heirloom barley, when you take them together, it's a superfood. All right. So, and then if you're working out, boom, you're detoxifying your body. You're bringing down inflammation. You're soaking up free radicals. You're getting more strength. You're controlling your blood glucose levels, and you're getting all the nutrients you need to really boost up your health. Now, again, Boomer Boost is the fourth pillar of this core protocol that I have. Max 35 to boost up your immune system. C60, soak up free radicals. Turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans bring down inflammation. And the Boomer Boost boost up your metabolism and your energy levels. You do that, boom, you're really going to be super healthy. And you add in like Gladiator barley and Myotrol, and you're working out and you're doing some cardio too throughout the week, you're going to be super healthy. All right. And you're going to start losing, if you're looking to lose weight, you're going to start losing weight. You're going to be gaining muscle. You're going to get more bone density. So that's a great combo. I have a longevity box called Longevity Boost Box. You get Boomer Boost and your choice of heirloom barley or gladiator barley. It's at a discount. It's when you buy a box, it's lower than the price point is lower than buying the individual products, and you can use discount 5 on top of it. It's a great way to get healthy. I want you to get healthy. Follow that core protocol, and you will get healthy. Taking these two, if you got diabetes, do a little bit of resistance training and walking, and taking these every day for breakfast or for lunch, and guess what? You're going to slowly reduce your diabetes and get off the, if you're taking insulin, and it's, because of lifestyle diabetes, not type 1, guess what? You're going to reverse diabetes. You're going to get healthier. You're going to lose weight. This is going to help with your cardiovascular fitness too, and your cardiovascular health. Improve your vascular system. Remember what I said, soaking up those free radicals, controlling your cholesterol, reducing your LDL, soaking up the free radical, reducing inflammation. That slows down and prevents the accumulation of plaque in your arteries. So not only did I give you a recipe for reducing diabetes, I gave you a recipe on how to improve your cardiovascular health. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The stuff works. I use it. Thank you for listening. That's the end of the transmission. Again, for the ones that don't know, when I do these live streams, you can listen to X Spaces. And if you want, you can do a call-in, ask a question by just asking for the mic and I will give it to you. It's a live show. It's an interactive. For the ones that have been typing in the chat box, I appreciate you sharing your experiences in corporate America. Have a nice day. Thank you for listening. Adios.